Hello again, everybody, and finally, welcome to another exciting, thrill-packed edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. I am indeed Jim Cornette, and today we debate who's crazier, Billy Jack Haynes or whoever booked last Wednesday's AEW television. All that and potentially something else. And joining me for all this and more, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He's the conductor of this crazy train, the great Brian Last, everybody.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again. We have a very interesting show. I'm getting a little sick of some of the weekly wrestling, but we always find good things to talk about in the middle of it all, and that's what I'm looking forward to today.
Well, it's later in the day than we tried to do this because for some reason, and I've been reporting in to everybody when we've had the severe weather, and I'm proud to announce that today the sun is shining, the birds are singing in Louisville, Kentucky, not a cloud hardly in the sky. It's a beautiful day. It's 70 degrees. You just want to frolic in the fields. And even though we have gone through severe thunderstorms and high wind warnings and floods and even a goddamn tornado a mile away and our electricity never blinked, today, just out of the blue, we got no power. I had just walked into the room where Stacy was on the phone with her mother over at her beautifully appointed townhouse. And they were both watching the same show on TV while they were on the phone. And Stacy said, well, my TV just went black. And her mother at the same time, well, my TV just went black. And I looked around and said, our house just went out. The power just quit, not only here, but 3 miles away. Depending on what type of bird is flying, the cuckoo bird goes in all directions, Brian, I understand. And I just out of the blue on a beautiful day. And by the time that we could call and report it, she's calling on the phone to report to the power company, hey, you ain't sending the same power over here. And I go out in the driveway and the neighbor's daughters, I say, hey, y'all got any power over there? Y'all got any of that power? I'm scratching my face. She said, no, it just went out. And by the time I walked back in the house, boom, the power came back on. I don't know what happened and why that it would affect between not only us, but an area that large that 3 miles away, there's a lot of businesses and homes in that intermediate area. But what it did, Brian, was it cleared off all my shit. I had not only my paper notes, but I have my screen up here waiting to connect with you on this high technological fucking audio setup we got going on and various copy and things, reports coming in from around. I had all my shit situated and orchestrated the way that I wanted it, and suddenly everything's out. And then I was verklempt and bumfuzzled, as Aunt Lola would say. And I didn't know what time it was. Do you know the clock here, Brian, that was sent to me? I'm patting the clock here now. That was sent to me by my good friend Chad over in West Virginia, one of the nation's top blind vendors. I've mentioned him several times on the show.
He's blind? He sells blinds. I don't remember.
No, and he's not in the blind business. He's a blind man in business. He's a blind businessman.
Shades and blinds and curtains.
He operates the vending machines along the highway and byways of our nation's mountaineer state. But nevertheless, he sent me this nice clock.
Seems like a reasonable job for a blind person. Along the highways, we want you to do stuff. What?
He's got a lot of it covered. And you have to watch out on the days he's making deliveries, though, because he's driving up and down. Anyway, so
that man's driving like he's blind. Well, that's the man with our granola.
That's the man that's going to stock the vending machine. But I'm trying to talk about this man's clock. I got it right here in my hands. He sent it to me to replace the clock that he had previously sent me. It kept gaining time, right? So he sent me it's even bigger and better has a great display. But the problem is, if for some reason when the power went on, it reset at 8 o'clock or came back on. It reset at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I've lost the book on how to fucking set this thing because the graphics and are not real good on this thing because it's for blind people, I guess. So and see, look,
It is 8:59 a.m.
See, no, it's not.
Well, if a blind person could set it, how could you not set it?
Well, they got special powers, Brian.
Special
You know
powers.
that.
I did not.
Daredevil. Need I go on? If when you lose a sense, your other senses are heightened, and their sense of how to figure out how to goddamn set this fucking clock are apparently at peak operating power. But I can't.
It is 8:59 a.m.
No, it's not. Anyway, so no, stop it.
January 1st,
No.
2023.
See, it's not January 1st, 2023 either.
Well,
But I checked my
ladies and
speed
gentlemen, they
for
are
you.
our new sponsor, and of course, ask for the Stan Hansen edition for people who can't see.
It's supposed. See, people could be behind, miss important doctors' appointments. They could have goddamn had their sight restored if they didn't think it was 2 years ago at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, imagine you're hitting that thing every day. It's 2023. You don't know what's going on.
Why is Charlie always depressed? Well, they could have given him back his eyesight. But
Yeah.
he had a problem with his clock, and he was 2 years off.
And I checked my speed when I reconnectified everything, and I'm 950 over 750 there, fella.
That's great.
So we got that going for us. And here, more, just exciting news. I wanted to say get well to my cousin Larry. I've mentioned him on the program on and off for the past couple of years. He's gone through numerous health issues, and finally, they actually gave him a spinal tap, which doesn't sound pleasant. And refigured out his medicines and his all this stuff, and he's been at home instead of the rehab facilities and getting around on the interior of the house. A little wobbly. Don't try any cross bodies or anything, and just reasonably happy to be there. And he fell down the stairs and basically broke his back, technically. Fractured a vertebra, one of those in his back.
Missouri.
Well, no, nobody says Missouri. Would be Missoula, Montana, but we're not talking about her. She was a porn star.
Missoula, Montana.
And yes, and my cousin Larry has never met Missoula, Montana. I don't even. I'm doing it the same clip
But
here.
he has all of her movies.
Spread that around. He might have seen some of her flicks. But anyway, so he's now back in bed. At least he's at home. He was only in the hospital for a couple of days, but he's at home. But now he has to lay flat of his back in bed much of the next 4 to 6 weeks while they're not physical therapying him and doing the things that they need to do. So hopefully he will feel better soon again. You think he kicked the old gypsy woman, Maria Ospinskaya, in the Wolfman movies at some point? He disregarded her and was cursed somehow. He's always been accident prone since he was a kid. But
or he just wanted time away for some more Missoula, Montana action.
Well, but with the
magazine
back,
form.
He can't see. He'd have to with the back issue though. He'd have to tape him to the ceiling.
Hey, I don't know if you heard, and I hate to bring it up if you haven't, but I haven't said anything until now. But did you hear that Rob Moore passed away?
I did not.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, there were a bunch of tweets and a bunch of different things that came in, but I thought you were copied on them, and I just thought about it. We never said anything on the air. We've talked about him in the past on the air. But yeah, sadly, he finally succumbed. I guess he was battling a lot of things.
Well, and sometimes I miss the tweets when things are happening around here. Or remember the other day I said I miss the tweets because they just fucking cut off for a day or so. I don't know. But anyway, I hate to hear that. We won't bore everybody again with the story of how Rob gave me the match idea that got me sued. But he was a great guy and a big wrestling fan and had worked, so as a ring announcer for so long in the promotions around, that part of Texas. I hate to hear that. Hopefully he was at least much older than I am, because it seemed, I remember we were somewhat contemporaries. That makes me nervous.
Really nice guy. I got to meet him at Fan Week. I was there when he came down in '94 for the thing that got you sued, but he really...
That's what he did it, yeah.
Yeah, but he wasn't there for the whole trip. He was just there for that event because it was his idea. But the next year he came down for the whole trip, and he was one of the nicest guys ever. Former president of the Dingo Warrior fan club.
But don't hold that against him.
No, he once sent me a copy because it's so funny of the signed permission slip where, Dingo Warrior signed it.
Which would stand up in any court of law in the nation.
But he was a mainstay in Dallas. Like, there are pictures of him just hanging out by the concessions in the Sportatorium while the wrestlers are there. He's as big as some of them. But he'd been there forever, and he had done local radio and all sorts of things with the local wrestling companies. Really nice guy, though. Really, really nice guy.
Yeah. Well, we hate to hear that. And
yeah.
Now that we've cheered everybody up, I've told them about Larry laid up in a bed with a broken back, and you've mentioned another of our friends pass away. Let's try to concentrate on the positive things in life by having people tell us negative things about ourselves. Shall we?
Wait, what?
Yes, that's exactly.
I mean, I'm used to it here on the show. You say awful things about me all the time. People are going to tell us negative things about ourselves?
But in my case, they're usually true. But in this case, Jonathan, hold on here. His name is Jonathan from Fort Francis, Ontario, Canada. Jonathan.
Where's that? Do you know where that is? Have you ever been there?
I have no idea. Fort Francis sounds like a nunnery. Do you think potentially he's been locked in a room somewhere in a nunnery for some reason to be used and abused and then thrown away like a used Kleenex on the peep show booth floor of life? Or maybe he just lives there.
Where are you? I'm at Fort Mary.
Fort Francis. But nevertheless, hello, Jim and Brian is how he begins his letter to us. And then he proceeds to talk mostly about me. Why does Jim always feel the need to comment on the way someone he is discussing looks? It's almost always in a negative context. Look at how fat Paul Heyman is. Nia Jax looks like a refrigerator. Nia Jax has a whiny voice. See, he keeps harping on the same person. Liv Morgan and Alexa Bliss are too short. My God, look at how old so-and-so looks. They're only a few years older or younger than I am. Things like aging and vocal tone and height can't be helped. And therefore, it's unfair to judge someone based on these attributes. As far as weight goes, some, like Nia Jax, have factually lost a lot of weight over the course of their careers, which is not easy to do.
Factually. If you want to crap all over someone's abilities in the world of wrestling, then go for it. But it's irrelevant to critique anything else about them. Now, let's hold on. Let's just stop here. He does have more. We'll come back to it.
There's more?
But
Jesus.
There's more.
Francis.
But factually, someone's abilities in the world of wrestling are what we are critiquing, because it is not only if you can train a chimpanzee to go out and perform wrestling moves, does that mean you can just let them main event WrestleMania? Don't the looks and the athletic ability, which is part of body type and
personality and ability to talk and communicate and connect with the audience, all those things are what separate us, Brian, from the lesser primates, right? From the chimpanzees. So if we are not allowed to critique anything other than the specific execution of the wrestling maneuver, then we are severely hamstrung in our attempts to paint a full picture, are we not?
Well, again, I think specifically what Francis said was that you were judging people based on these traits. If you're judging someone or reviewing someone's promo, their voice and the way they deliver stuff have to be discussed. There are times it doesn't work for Seth Rollins. He's too whiny. And then there's other times it works. And we've called him out on both times. So that's in terms of voice, because he brought up voice all of a sudden, too. Height. Again, if Charles Midget Fisher were here and had that credibility, you would just dismiss it. Chad Gable's a shorter guy. We never bring the height into the discussion. It's always about the seriousness of the character. There are some people that seem really fucking small. Alexa Bliss, probably one of them. I've never said it about Liv Morgan. You turned around on Liv Morgan. She's proven herself to be a star. But those are the two examples, and Nia Jax sucks. I'm sorry.
Well, speaking of the female roster, I will get back to Francis here from Fort Jonathan in Ontario. I've enjoyed your show for a long time, but it's quickly becoming the last bastion of fat shaming, ageism, and sexism for sure. If someone is smaller, if someone doesn't cut the best sounding promo in the world, yet they've still found success at a place like the WWE, then shouldn't that be celebrated? I don't know. They made Milli Vanilli give the Grammy back.
It's not like they rose up through merit. No disrespect to anyone who gets to the main roster, but it's like, I pick you. It's not like this person is just nonstop getting A's. We got to elevate them.
Well, that's what Francis from Fort Jonathan says. They were behind the 8 ball from the start and still made it. Many of them made it because they found a billionaire angel. He continues, aging is a natural part of life. You rag on older people for naturally looking old. Do you want them to get cosmetic surgery? Maybe grow a mustache and dye it along with their hair black?
Well, who's he talking about there?
Well, wait a minute. Not that I'm defending Vince McMahon's bizarre, not fooling anyone look. But my point is that you rag on people no matter what if they look older or try to look younger. No, we rag on them if they are too old to successfully portray the image that they are supposed to be protruding.
Yeah, he cited Vince McMahon.
Goes mad.
He cited Vince McMahon as the example. We're allowed to critique an old man if all of a sudden he shows up looking radically different than he ever looked before, like a bloated Errol Flynn. We're allowed to say something. You can't say anything? That's the thing. There are people who think you should just watch stuff and then be silent.
He said clearly he wasn't defending that look, but again.
Well, which senior is he defending?
It would be wonderful. It'd be wonderful if many of the current Yankees players got to play on a team with Babe Ruth, but not if Babe Ruth was still around and 74 years old and they were in a real game that they were supposed to win. And oh shit, we're going to send Babe in just for the fun of it. That type of ageism. But nevertheless, and finally, I will conclude with Francis from Fort Jonathan. Fat people may be that way because they just don't care about bettering their physique or their health, but some maybe are truly trying to drop weight and get healthy. It's not easy. You aren't their doctor or dietitian. You don't know their medical history, eating habits, or weight issues. It's not for you to comment. Stick to wrestling. Well, wait a minute. The new champion has gained 125 pounds in the last year and a half, all around the middle, and he hadn't seen a tan bed in the fucking same amount of time. You think we should stick to letting his doctor say he's fine? He's fine.
Is this signed Chris Jericho?
But no, but he is from Ontario, Canada now. Francis from Fort Jonathan. Oh, and also there's a PS.
Oh.
Just come right out and say that you're sexiest. Okay.
No, it does not say that.
That's it. It's SEXIEST. I admit it. I am sexiest. I just wanted to clear all these things up. Thank you, Francis, from writing in from Fort Jonathan, Ontario, Canada.
I mean, but it's just, that's where it gets ridiculous. That's where you could tell, like, Francis may have the best intentions at heart, but he's also probably, like, the least fun at a party of anyone you've ever met. You know, the idea that these people who are on TV, and again, it's not like, you know, Major League Baseball, if a player starts hitting 200 and they hit 200 for the season, it's not like we can't say anything. They're not performing at a top level. Doesn't mean they're not put in the lineup. It doesn't mean they're not given chances. Just because a wrestler makes it to the main roster, there is a sect of fans that think you shouldn't criticize anything. You know, it's kind of like that Triple H quote a few weeks ago. Just be a fan. Just go along for the ride. Why do you have to critique this? Because that's what WWE's always wanted, a world where the only media they get is the media that goes to them and asks them questions and reports their answers. Not someone who says, you know, this may not be working. The booking may suck on the road to WrestleMania. Things like that.
Can I interject?
It's your show, yeah.
Well, but they had that audience until they started getting a bunch of people on top that insisted on telling all the fans that it was bullshit and they were making it up. And then everybody went from going crazy in the arena hoping so-and-so beat the shit out of so-and-so to saying, well, I could have fucking come up with better ideas to have them do that. And that's what happened there. So congratulations, Einsteins. But the point is, from the standpoint of this show, not only am I going to fucking talk about this shit because goddamn, I see it in my sleep at this point. After 50 fucking years, I've got an opinion on a few things. But besides that, if you are on television or on streaming to phones in people's pocket or at a live event in public where they charge admission, whether it movies, any type of entertainment that the public consumes, and you think that people are not going to fucking pro or con, yay or nay, with them or against them, have all the goddamn comments in the world, you're out of your fucking mind. And you are fair game within obviously legal limits for people to use their opinions or say their opinions or whatever, and their comments and their critiques on what you do. That doesn't mean they need to, you know, forensically examine your goddamn life and find out that your fucking father-in-law once was a member of the Communist Party or whatever. But the public persona, yeah. If you're sloppy, fat, or fucking woefully inadequate physically when you're supposed to be some kind of badass professional athlete, we're probably going to mention that. And et cetera, et cetera.
How dare you say Haystacks Calhoun is fat? Who are you to judge the mighty Haystack?
He was only big boned. Haystack now. He wasn't, the McGuires were fat, but Haystack was only big boned.
Jeez.
But here's another problem, Brian, is that everybody thinks that we're just so horrible with things we say. Many times me, but sometimes you. You're not as horrible as I am, I don't think, on a scale. I'm not sure. But their friends, their idols, their heroes, the people they look up to in the wrestling world, of the young kids, the with it kids. They're the ones that are blazing the trail for inclusivity instead of exclusivity, and curiosity that killed the kitty or whatever the fuck it was. And we find out that they're just as bad. The young kids, the hip kids over at AEW are just as bad. Paige has spilled the beans. You mentioned this to me before we went on the air, that they wanted her. I thought this was supposed to be the modern, we're going to see the females as just, the athletic side of them and not make them do all this diva stuff. And they wanted her to have a fucking romance in AEW before she, at some point while she was there, but obviously before she left the company.
Well, according to
has this been reported credibly?
This has been reported this morning from a Twitter account called Wrestle Purist. They've had stuff in the past that has been verified, I believe. And this is just a direct quote, actually.
Well, I mean, if it's a direct quote, pretty much any Howie from the mailroom can bring that up.
But this was sent to us by a bunch of people. This is a quote from Saraya from the program Rule Breakers with Saraya. In AEW, there's a wrestler called Daddy Magic. They wanted me to do a love storyline with him. I've managed to go my whole career without doing a love storyline, and I wasn't going to start it. They were like, no, all he's going to do is kiss you. I had a boyfriend at the time, and I was just like, I can't do it, you guys. I just can't do it. So I turned it down. And of course, Saraya is now gone from AEW on the program Rule Breakers with Saraya. You brought it up. What are your thoughts on the idea that they pitched her something with someone who, at very best, could be considered low mid-card in terms of the placement? And two, you have any problem with a wrestler turning something like that down?
Well, and I mean, a bunch of people are going to say rude things about this young lady as soon as we start talking about her turning anything down or whatever the case. So we're going to try to, we're going to go high when they go low, Brian.
Let's have a serious discussion about it. I'm not saying.
Well, I was about to say, we're going to go high when they go low. We're going to talk from a professional standpoint of this whole thing, right? Notwithstanding anything else may be in people's minds.
You had me at let's go high.
All right. Well, there you go. There is an element of when you sign up to be a wrestler, a personality in wrestling, male or female, there's some showbiz involved. There is some acting. I prefer to call it reacting, but there is interplay with other people. You have to do things with other people in the course of the Zabada. And in the past, many times, the female with a heel, where they were a real life couple anyway, that's how they got into business. Then as that started expanding in OVW, I had guys that were working with girls with them or in the gimmick or a group or whatever, and they had everybody was professional. But there's some element of what you've got to portray on television. And Saraya Paige, which is her new or real, what name is she allowed to use now, wherever she may be?
She owns the name Saraya. That's her name, isn't it?
Okay, well, I can't remember what the fuck she's been doing.
Can't use Paige. Paige is a WWE.
Okay. Well, nevertheless, she was a star that was supposed to be a difference maker in AEW. And so if it had been some type of situation where she and a main event personality, and MJF at the time, who was also more important than he is now, or whatever the case, we're supposed to have some kind of on-screen thing going on, I would expect you could be able to get a little kiss out of that. You would be kind of, I'm not talking anteaters with their tongues down each other's throat, but some working fucking kissing you should reasonably expect as a promoter in that instance.
You could also hide it. You could also just, use a camera angle so you don't actually see it, but it looks.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Working fucking kissing. The lips need to be somewhere in the vicinity, but you don't have to go goddamn like you're fucking fishing in each other's mouths to, achieve the effect. Although it's optional if the participants care to. But the point is, it's fucking Daddy Mac, whatever, that round, greasy-faced fucking underneath guy with the hyperactivity, and they wanted this former star. She had already fallen under their booking, and suddenly they want her to be in love with this guy. No, I think she could. She had gone that far without doing the romance angles, and she saw no reason to break her trend at that point. I can understand that from her side.
The question I have specific to this, and we'll get back to everything else, when was this pitched? Because Daddy Magic's partner was Cool Hand Luke, and her partner was Ruby Soho. And then we find that Ruby Soho and Cool Hand Luke just had a baby. That's why she's not around anymore.
Okay.
Was this a part of that? Or was it like, okay, they won't do it. You two, you're now together. What happened first?
Well, at least Paige didn't end up with an 18-year anchor around her neck as a result of a wrestling angle.
Oh, kids are wonderful. Stop it.
Well, Daddy Max or Cool Hand Luke's?
Well,
you gonna have those?
At least they'd have citizenship all over the place.
Well, yeah, because Ruby's from Soho, right?
I guess so, yeah.
They can all live
well,
there.
They're Canadian. They're a Canadian tag team, 2.0.
I don't really think they've got a point, but nevertheless, congratulations to whoever deserves it.
So is she in the wrong here for declining? If she was,
No.
She's never done an angle like this in her entire life. She's going to do it for the first time with this guy.
Well, that's what they thought.
Who
but
doesn't even make Dynamite? Who doesn't even make, he's on Collision at best.
I don't think that, and they, after she lost the shiny new toy status, then they didn't do that much with her to begin with. I don't think she's alleging that was particularly the reason, but they just, for a while there, they signed a bunch of girls that they thought were going to be stars, and the only one that's how long has Toni Storm been there? She wasn't there at the start, obviously. Where's Britt Baker?
Yeah.
Now that I'm freelancing.
I don't know. Maybe she's freelancing. I really don't know where Britt Baker is.
Do you think she just knocks door to door and says, I can work on your teeth?
Again, there's a lot to the Britt Baker thing that maybe one day will come out. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Who'd you ask
what,
about
fillings?
Who'd you ask? That's Mike
Fillings or
Leno.
crowns?
That's Dr. Mike Leno. Who'd you ask about before her?
I don't know.
You mentioned a different name. Oh, Toni Storm.
Toni Storm.
Well, Toni
when did
Storm
she come in?
Toni Storm, she was teaming up with Saraya and Ruby Soho when she came up with the Timeless gimmick, which took her away from everyone in the division, kind of gave her her own multiverse or universe. It would just be one universe. But if you notice, she broke away from the pack. She's the most over woman in the company.
Yeah.
Just because of the gimmick.
So she may be, particularly right now, the only.
They pitched her a love angle with Orange Cassidy, and she said, I'll become a 1930s actress, thank you.
And I would have supported her in that also if you had a choice. I don't think the other thing should be allowed to procreate. But point being, she's made herself, but all of the ladies that had already had a reputation are like all the guys that already had a reputation. They come there and like that.
Hey, if I could say something real quick on the topic.
I wish you would.
On the topic of the ladies before we move on, because I don't know where we're going.
Neither do I.
Just a short announcement for the fans, because I pre-ordered it and I just received an email. It is now available for me on Apple, Queen of the Ring. So for a lot of people who have wanted to see it on streaming services, it's now finally starting to get out there because my purchase copy has been downloaded.
I got to ask Stacy how that works. We might have a movie night. I wouldn't have it. If you held a gun to me, I would be clicking on the cable remote trying to, where is it listed that I can?
No, you literally can't turn on a clock for a blind man.
Well, I'm not blind. God damn it.
It is 9:29.
It is not. No, it is not.
No, it's not.
Only one of those numbers was right.
Well, as a matter of fact, it's what? Hold on. Yeah, there was one number in there. All right, and now the shit's falling down.
This is a great episode today.
Well, looky here. And let's talk about, since we're talking about the kids and their interaction, am I hearing now that young Ricochet is having a tiff, a beef, an altercation, a contretemps with younger Javon Evans from the NXT?
Did you see this at all?
No, all I heard was that he's at it again. We've talked about Ricochet on Twitter. Somebody actually he's at it again, and I knew you'd fill me in. There was a headline that I didn't have time, but Ricochet argues with random fans on not like a one-time thing, like, well, fuck you, and whatever, something witty, and then boom. But like back and forth, like, no, I'm better. And he was saying he was better than Io Sky. He could do more shit. And he apparently spends time in his day to at least make people believe that he is arguing with them individually. Now, this may be part of him being a heel, as we've said, but now that he's extending to the boys in other companies, it seems that there is almost some credence being lent for our Catholic friends, to the idea that he really means this shit. Help me, Brian.
Well, I guess it started. There's someone on Twitter named Dwayne Yamamoto.
I'm sorry, but I just told Joe had no children.
Except for that adopted child he had in 87 when Rocky Johnson was in town. Dwayne Yamamoto tweeted out, Javon is the best prospect in wrestling, and don't come in my replies talking about some randoms nobody's ever heard of either. To which Ricochet, I don't know why or how he came across this, quote tweeted, I'd squash him. To which Javon Evans replied, and this has since been deleted, in the Ric Flair style of capitalizing the first letter of every word. My bad. I just got done training at the Performance Center under Shawn Michaels. Something that you don't have or do, but I bet your brown egghead ass would squash me if Tony told you to. To which Ricochet replied, brother, I was learning from Shawn Michaels, and that's an apostrophe after the L before the S. I was learning from Shawn Michaels when you was like 12. Then went on to become a multiple-time champion. Let me know when you win one, little boy. And yeah, if Tony asked me, I'd definitely beat you up. Well, he said beat you aku. Or aka. I don't know, because I write like a fucking normal person in English. And then he wrote, also, by just...
Wait a minute. He's coming back like the fucking pissed off wife.
Also,
and here's another thing.
By just simply mentioning my name, this is your most engaged post. Oh, excuse me. This is your most engaged with post. You're welcome for the exposure, kid. And there's an emoji of a crown. To which Javon Evans replied, and this has since been deleted, you learned from HBK when I was 12 and became a multiple-time champion? Now you're wrestling in front of 2,000 people every week for a crackhead.
Oh my God.
Talk about an upgrade, am I right? Sounds like Mr. Khan isn't giving you enough attention. So, you had to come for a successful-ass youngin'. You're giving me the most views on my post, and I'm finally helping you get the most attention you'd ever had in your career. All love. To which Ricochet finally replied,
oh, Jesus Christ.
How many people does the PC hold? Blah, ha, ha, ha. But keep up the energy. It makes you look cool. And that's the final word as of this moment. Again, Javon Evans has deleted his 2 replies here. At least 2 replies, actually, maybe more than that. To Ricochet. Ricochet's gimmick, it appears, is just trolling people online. In this case, apparently, even wrestlers he doesn't have any sort of relationship with.
Well, in companies that he doesn't have a relationship with, and in ways that makes him come off, if his job that he is attempting here, his mission is to make people assume that he is a childish, whiny little bitch and unprofessional. And I'm not talking about in a wrestling heel way. I'm just talking about like in a fucking, he's just a douchebag way that thinks his shit's a lot hotter than it is. But there's no reason, and it didn't sound like these two, if that was a cooperative angle, quote unquote, like kids do, that these two came up with to shoot together, then they're really both bad at fucking doing it. Because they hit all the fucking negative points and none of the positive ones. There's no business to be done. And Javon comes off looking better because he's like, what the fuck? How did I get involved in this? This fucking little prick.
Minding my own business, but one day.
Sitting over here. One day. But so, I mean, I think Javon would also kick the shit out of fucking little Ricocito, the little mini from Mexico.
This one line here is an all-timer. You learned from HBK when I was 12 and became a multiple-time champion? Now you're wrestling in front of 2,000 people every week for a crackhead. Talk about an upgrade, am I right? Oh, Jesus. What do you think of a wrestler calling another promoter a crackhead? Not another wrestler, but someone who pays people.
Well, I mean, he was a little incensed, and sometimes the truth will slip out or the true feelings, I should say, will slip out when you're a little bit prickly. And that's what he thought at that fucking point in time. Because again, he was minding his own business, sitting in his fucking chair over there, trying to do the best he can. And along comes this fucking Ricochet picked it up at random, right? He wasn't the guy that originally said that Javon Evans was just swell, wasn't talking to Ricochet. He was just making a statement on the internet.
That's what it looks like, correct.
And so I think somebody ought to get Ricochet off the internet and maybe, I don't know, who could you put him in a car with, or maybe a cell with, that could try to teach him how to think about the business? Probably nobody. You'd find the cellmate hanging from his bed sheets if he was locked up with this fucking kid.
Do you think Ricochet should have defended Tony? He said, hey, how many people were at the Performance Center? He didn't say, and Tony's not a crackhead.
Well, I mean, he was trying to just stick with things that he factually was aware of, apparently. The Performance Center is indeed smaller than 2,000 seats, but possibly the jury was not in with all the evidence in his mind on whether any of the other statements were true or false. There's always that. The less a man makes declarative statements, the less likely he is to be proven wrong in retrospect.
So he took down the tweets. You think that's a company directive?
Probably. Because I think that somebody at the company probably said, you can tell this guy's an asshole all day long when he's knocking you, but don't accuse other people of like public drug addiction or potentially committing crimes. Don't do that. So they clawed those back, as they say in the financial world.
That'd be the funniest thing ever if Tony sued him for calling him a crackhead. Where's your evidence, Mr. Evans?
Well, then he would have to take a piss test, wouldn't he?
Or have Shivani do it for him.
Well, I don't know. The way Shivani's just sitting there in the middle of all this chaos, shaking his head, going, I love my job. He may be on some type of...
You're saying crack?
Elevate. I'm just saying elevational material.
Are you saying Tony Schiavone's on crack?
No, not crack. Just something to make him happy.
Caffeinated?
No, my God, that seems like that would make this nightmare worse. I'm thinking Propofol for anybody that knows what's going on with wrestling. That's the way that they tolerate it.
I think the sad thing is, I think it starts with Ricochet thinking like he's looking good. Like, yeah, there it is. My new persona, my new online persona. And then it just quickly goes south and he can't like get back to the surface. He's like just drowning under the water, trying to get back up. And Javon Evans just drowned him.
Is it drowned or drowned?
I'm not sure. Did you ever think people would be fighting for the credibility of training under Shawn Michaels like this?
No, come to think of it, I never did. But at least they do the same thing. They grow up to have unprofessional shoot arguments with each other. No, I'm not knocking Javon. He's an innocent victim in this. He's just a pawn in the game.
They should have Ricochet do this like they've been putting him in tag matches. Have him on the apron texting. Create a buzz. It'll create a bigger buzz than his actual matches. Just who's he texting? Who's he fighting with? Who's drowning him? Shorty wanna.
Oh, quit. I know what you wanna. And I'm not. I'll tell you what, she needs to, boy.
You can keep going.
I'm speaking of out the door real quick, that's where everything went on the Corny's Vault sale for the May Mayhem extravaganza at jimcornette.com. Of the things that I promoted and talked to you about within the first 3 days, basically, we have a few of I believe some of the Raw variant figures are left, believe it or not. And a few of the half price Christmas variants and some of the Smoky Mountain event tickets, because we had more of those to start out with than the rest of the stuff. And everything else that I mentioned is sold out. And I've given Hotchkiss the word we're trying to process these orders so we can start shipping them. And he's going to start taking down the listings of all the stuff that's sold out days after he put it up. But if you get there, don't get frustrated. I'm sorry. But it was the response was so good. We're going to do something else later in the summer with more old magazines and things as I'm able to go through and separate things. JimCornette.com. So right now, all of the regular stuff is still on sale. Order with just impunity on that. But otherwise, we are the rest of you who have ordered, we are beginning to fill those next week. When we got our shit together.
That's right.
All righty, and real quick, speaking of caca, and you're going to freak out when I'm going to bring this up because, you're going to get us in trouble. I'm going to be non-judgmental and completely professional about all of this, except when I scoff at one thing. There were more ring boys that joined the lawsuit, and it is among the many lawsuits that's involved between either Vince and WWE and the ring boys and the attorneys and all the people and the doctors now, that the doctor is suing the woman that's suing Vince for slandering him, blah, blah, blah. But in all of this comes out another Hall of Famer mentioned, 2 more Hall of Famers accused in Ring Boy's lawsuit. And just to bring ourselves up to date, we have all already wholeheartedly agreed that probably everything that anybody said about Mel Phillips that he ever did, he probably did do. Guilty as the day is long. And even a Terry Garvin is not getting as much coverage as he used to get or as much mention. Mel Phillips gets a lot of, because it's a more even bizarre story. Mel Phillips gets a lot of the attention, but Terry Garvin, I think, Brian, we've all agreed also pretty wholeheartedly that Terry Garvin was involved and did whatever they said he was
He
doing.
absolutely was, 100%.
Yes.
That was what blew up the whole Tom Cole thing, was when Terry Garvin brought Tom Cole to his house and then wouldn't take him home, and it was like a snowstorm, and Tom Cole would hide from Terry Garvin for a couple days or whatever it was. And also, Mel Phillips was on TV. And I think that's one of the reasons why You know, it stood out to a lot of people. I mean, beyond the sick, perverted end of it, the fact that it was the black ring announcer. He stood out. I mean, he was on Wrestling Challenge, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. Then you never knew what his name was. He never really had a name. It was just the ring announcer, Howard Finkel. They said his name. And yeah, Mel Phillips is the one who I guess coordinated with the Ring Boys, so he's probably the biggest name.
Well, yeah,
in
but
terms
Terry
of people
Garvin was the
involved.
one who actually was Mel Phillips was working for in the actual
Yeah.
company, because Terry Garvin legitimately worked for the company, so he was the boss of that. He just doesn't get mentioned a lot these days.
And they ended up working together too after they left WWF. They thought they were going to stay
Yes.
in wrestling and start like a little indie group in, I think, Massachusetts or whatever it was. And they had business cards and everything.
And the third person that was named at that point, but allegations were fewer and much less specific, Pat Patterson, and another one of the new ring boys that joined the suit, mentioned Pat Patterson, and I'm not even going to get started. So you can breathe easy there, because it's like wrestling. For those who believe no explanation is necessary, for those who don't, no explanation will do. There are people who didn't know Pat Patterson or who had a problem with him, who was, oh yeah, and people who knew him and didn't have a problem with him, who scoff at it. And I'm one of those. And apparently nobody's going to change their mind on either side. So we're not going to litigate it. But the other one I have to mention, because it was funny to me at first because it was so ridiculous, because the name wasn't in the headline. You had to click to get there. And when I saw it, I was, what the fuck? Coco Ware. Coco Ware. Coco. This is what we've come to here. And when I think back, I think the reason I thought it might be the funniest was I would pay $5,000 if I could get a video with Coco Ware said that, however he found out about it. Does he sit down at his computer during the course of the day and just look at news? Or did his next door neighbor call him up, or how the fuck he found out that he was being accused in news reports of sexual assault of anybody, much less a minor, much less a male? Coco, it's like Gomer Pyle is selling military secrets to the Russians, Brian.
Well, let's take a step back, because I don't know the whole story, and I'm going to assume a lot of the listeners haven't been following this. What are they saying Coco did?
That's what we're going to get into. But he was in the. There are all these other people who allegations of legitimate shit, and fucking shit, if it is legitimate, would be improper in any context, right? And then he's lumped into Coco fucking Ware. And again, just so you know, we're talking Coco Ware. When the history of wrestling has a story ever involved the words Coco Ware was arrested, Coco Ware was drunk and did this, Coco Ware was high on drugs, Coco Ware, the one fight he got into in public, the other guy got fired, and it was one of Vince's best friends, that Jim Troy.
I was going to say,
because they said it was his fault.
I was going to say that's the only incident I could think of where Coco got into big trouble. Was he got maybe suspended for a little bit? I'm not sure, but Jim Troy got fired. Jim Troy was a top executive there, going back to the Cape Cod days for the McMahon family. And the rumor was, I haven't heard the story in a while, so I don't want to say the wrong thing. The rumor was he may have said the worst thing you could say to Coco, and Coco knocked him on his ass.
Yes. But the point is, Jim Troy was one of Vince's best friends and first partners, and they fired him after Coco knocked him out. Right. But the point is the Coco has to hear that he's involved in this. I can't imagine, his head must have exploded. And again, this is a case of when you go too far, your main story, your main argument, the stuff that legitimately did happen with people that legitimately did do it, your case is harmed when you go this far, is the point that I'm trying to make.
What are they saying?
And
what are they saying?
Here is this account. Here's this account. In a separate alleged incident in a WWF dressing room in Maine, John Doe number 6 claims he was grabbed in the crotch by wrestler Coco Beware with many other witnesses present, including Mel Phillips, Pat Patterson, ring crew member and later ring announcer Tony Chimmel, and referee Danny Davis. And by not the OVW Danny Davis, but the WWF Danny Davis. Were you going to say something?
No, I guess when I heard ring crew, I forgot, Tony Chimmel started that way, actually.
Yes, well, Tony was a ring announcer, but he started on the ring crew, but many of the referees, as we've talked about, Jack Doan, they were at various times, they were the ring crew also that would drive the truck or ride in the truck. And so you had, because Finkel was a TV announcer, but Chimmel was a house show announcer. Anyway, point is there's 1, 2, 3, 4 people, many witnesses. But here's the description. In front of everyone else in the room, Coco Beware told John Doe 6 to get against the wall, pushed John Doe 6's head against the wall, patted him down, and then grabbed John Doe 6's crotch. Then the lawsuit states that most others in the room laughed except Chimmel, who said something like, "Don't do that, let him go." Chimmel later told John Doe 6 that he shouldn't be on the ring crew and that he should run away, according to the complaint. Because Mel Phillips was the one that was running the ring crew. But back to Coco. When does a sexual assault begin with a frisking? There's a bunch of guys in a locker room before the fucking show and patting him down. Okay, I mean, thinking back to, I don't know, any men's high school, college, or professional sports locker room, wrestling or otherwise, from a 30-year period, if somebody's supposed to be patted down, they're, as Dennis Corluzzo used to say, they're busting my balls, Jimmy. They're busting balls, wasting time in the locker room. And they told the one guy, "Hey, you got something you're not supposed to have." "No, I don't." "We need to check." Or somebody said, "You owe me $1. I don't have it." "I bet you do." So Coco's, "We got to pat you down." So he gets against the wall, like on Cops, and he pats him down. He says, "Okay, you seem to be clean." "Oh, wait." And he grabs and squeezes his balls. "What's this?" And the guy jumps, "Oh, Jesus Christ." And everybody laughs and you go about your day. What the fuck?
It was a kid. It was a kid. That's the problem. If it did happen, there's no patting him down's one thing, goofing around with that. But if he grabbed him by the balls,
a six-year-old kid,
doesn't fucking matter. It's another
or a teenage kid.
If you grab someone's genitals, you're gonna get in trouble. If that indeed did happen.
Okay, if it's
and people who want to grab other people's genitals who aren't into them, there's a problem there too. Maybe they
all right. Hold on here a second.
If Coco did it,
and by the way, Coco was 17 when he started wrestling to begin with, so he was a teenager in the fucking locker room and seeing these ribs. Then he's still a 20-something-year-old kid because this was the fucking 80s. What do you think he's a goddamn 60-year-old man?
I've been in the locker room. The guy in the locker room who wants to grab other people's junk as a joke, usually they got something going on. They don't.
Well, it didn't used to be.
I bet you.
I'm telling you, that's what the fucking rib, when you grab somebody by the balls, it makes them jump and everybody laughs. Your problem is you had cell phones.
No, that isn't the problem.
The
problem is the behavior of grabbing other people's genitalia.
Okay, then I'll tell you what.
That's the problem.
Then I'll tell you what. Then I would accept a headline and not be indignant on Coco Ware's behalf.
Was he in the headline? I forgot what the headline was.
But no, I said the headline didn't have anybody's names. That's why you have to click, right? But he's accused of this with everybody else who was having forced fucking blowjobs and all this other fucking shit going on. He fucking grabs a guy's fucking balls to make him jump in front of a bunch of guys laughing about it. And everybody went on. And now 40 years later, he's being accused of sexual assault. I would go for if they accused WWF Hall of Famer Coco Ware of hazing, as the college kids used to say.
Where's Tony Chimmel?
What do you mean here right now?
Does he still work for WWE?
I can't imagine after all these years that they've got rid of everybody else.
Go to Tony Chimmel. Tony Chimmel's quoted in this. I mean, it's hearsay, but it says that Tony Chimmel said this: "Get away from here, or leave him alone, let him go." Tony Chimmel is the one who could answer all these questions.
Oh, for heaven's sake. There shouldn't be that many questions about this, because I can see Tony Chimmel sitting there. Don't do that. Let him go. And he probably took the kid over to corner about Mel Phillips, not Coco, and said, you shouldn't be on this fucking ring crew.
So help me with my confusion here just a little bit about who did what and how it worked. Obviously, we all know about Mel Phillips and the Ring Boys. The Ring Crew, a lot of the referees, I guess. What did the Ring Boys do that the Ring Crew didn't, and vice versa? Like what? I think a lot of people think it was the Ring Boys putting up the ring and doing all this, but what's the Ring Crew doing then?
Well, here's again, when I started in 1993, the Ring Crew that came to the buildings was either, like I said, Jack Doan, the referee, or oh goddamn, now I blanked on it. Somebody's going to be out there going, goddamn, you worked with me or Tony Chimmel, who was announcing. But the referees, except for the senior referees, Earl Hebner didn't have to do it, Timmy White didn't have to do it. But they were in the truck and they drove the ring from place to place. But there were helpers that they had at the buildings, but they were all, I would assume, people that were contracted by the building to be, hands to carry the goddamn shit in the building. But by that time, most of the buildings WWF was running were bigger operations. Apparently, until Mel Phillips was gone and Terry Garvin was gone, and an end was put to this, is that they were working some kind of goddamn arrangement amongst themselves where they would get teenage boys that locally that wanted to get in the fucking matches for free or see the wrestlers or whatever the fuck to help do something. I don't know. They had to be halfway physically large to carry a ring post, I would think. But I don't know what the fuck that nominally they were supposed to be doing, but a bunch of untrained teenagers, to me, would get in the way more than anything else.
See, I thought I had heard at one point that they had helped Mel Phillips take down the ring before he did whatever the fuck he was doing. But
and that's that may have been what was going on especially on these house shows or whatever during the period of time that he was there. That's probably why they changed it to, what I said, which was more the referees and ring announcers traveling from place to place were in the ring truck and they were hauling shit and they were the heads of the ring crew, but there would be legitimate, paid for goddamn local labor at the buildings that they needed that would help with that shit. But again,
why did Vince bring Mel Phillips back?
Terry, and that's the thing. Terry Garvin was the guy in the office that oversaw like rings getting there and fucking, the announcers and all that bullshit. So it was easier for him and Mel Phillips to work whatever deal they were fucking working. But it's not like, apparently now we come to find out that they were working real hard to fucking cover it up.
How did Terry Garvin even get hired? He had never done anything with the Northeast, never done anything with New York or Vince McMahon Sr.
He was French Canadian, obviously. And see, that's another thing. I wondered how many people, some of these people knew which gray-haired old French Canadian they were talking about. But he had been around the business and involved in the business as a wrestler. And then I think later on did some behind the scenes work in promotion, at least in Canada, for a short period of time. But he had been around forever and showed up. Was it a Barnett thing? Because Terry Garvin had worked for Barnett for years and years in Georgia. And I think
Yeah.
Australia. When did he start there? I don't, but he just somehow ended up there.
I don't know. I mean, but that's part of the question too. It's not just why did they bring Mel Phillips back? How did Terry Garvin get this specific job and then keep it for that many years? And if they knew shit was happening with Mel Phillips, you can't tell me they didn't know shit was happening with Terry Garvin. And what did they think? They would just run the clock and eventually he'd be an old man? Like, it's crazy to me. And, you know, I will say, and you and I obviously differ on this, but the Pat Patterson stuff, you know, again, it goes into, you know, my general thought that if you grab someone's dick, there's maybe something more to it. I think there are a couple things, and I've said this before on the air. I think Pat Patterson made highly sexualized innuendos and jokes, hoping that someone would say, okay, let's play. That was the best.
Well, hold on. Let me give my thoughts on that. I agreed with everything you just said until you said hoping someone would say, okay, let's play. Because I've seen him make those comments and they were funny in groups of people where there was no insinuation whatsoever and we were doing other shit. They were asides, if anything else, because he was already committed at that point in time and they didn't, to anyone's knowledge at that point, was not doing anything to change that, but he wouldn't have just broadcast it if he was.
Well, I don't know anything about what commitment him and Louis had throughout their years, but, you know, Tom Hankins, who passed away in the past year, who I knew, I had him on 605. I know friends of his going back to the 60s, actually. He was a fan club guy. So, you know, a lot of people know him. No one really says he doesn't have credibility. His story was, and this is from 84, when he was training with Dr. Jerry Graham. And if you remember, they brought Dr. Jerry Graham in after the national expansion for like one TNT.
1 week.
Yeah. And he was on TNT and Vince looked like he was in heaven. And Dr. Jerry Graham said, I have a whole new wolf pack, new Grahams I'm bringing in. And Tom Hankins purportedly was going to be one of the new Graham family, the new Graham brothers, the sons, whatever they are. And after an Olympic Auditorium show, they were all at the bar. And Pat Patterson kind of came on to him, he thought, and made some joke about, what's wrong with me? Am I a bad guy if I just want to give you a blowjob? And he said, no, you're just a cocksucker. And Pat got a little upset about that, and the booking never happened. Who knows if the booking ever would have happened, but enough people knew of the incident in real time and people were there. There was something. So
actually, that was a good enough comeback. I would have thought Pat would have chuckled at it.
No, apparently Pat got very upset. It is a good comeback. So, I don't know. You know, again, Pat Patterson, there are stories and rumors and, you know, there are enough shoot interviews out there where people say, if my tag partner had done this, if I had done this, but it was never if a kid had done this. And I think that's the thing. I think it's not unreasonable to think at one time before it was certainly widely known you couldn't behave like that, that Pat Patterson may have been inappropriate. And, you know, I don't think that's outrageous, but...
Oh, but inappropriateness, no, but not with anybody that wasn't wanting to be
well, it wasn't a kid. It wasn't a kid. My point is, even if it was a, you know, again, if it was a jobber feeling pressure that, you know, oh, this guy wants to blow me, that's one thing.
I don't even know about that. But I'm saying, nevertheless,
what separates him from Terry Garvin, typically, and again, I don't know all this stuff. I have not read up on the Coco Ware part of the story, so I don't know. But, you know, that's the thing. Terry Garvin and Mel Phillips, it was kids, and the McMahon family knew about it with Mel Phillips and let him go and then brought him back. And, you know, again, if they really dive deep into this, the McMahon family's knowledge of everything with Tom Cole, you know, Tom Cole killed himself right after Pat Patterson died, purportedly because he couldn't take all the positive attention Pat was getting after that. So, I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, it's a long time ago.
And that goes back to my point, because everything you just said is true and they knew about it and etc., which is why you want the story to be taken seriously. And when you go so far as to name Coco Ware because he was doing a pat down in front of a bunch of the boys jacking off and killing time in the fucking locker room, then you diminish somewhat the impact of the true story that you're telling to where somebody's going to roll their eyes, potentially a judge or whatever. Oh, come on now. You know, what other part of this it might have been maybe overstated?
Well, it depends. How was it? Is this just a story in their filing? Is this just, here's another incident that happened? Or are they specifically saying, Coco Ware is a predator.
Well, no,
Blah, blah,
I'm
blah.
saying that this is in the filing of their alleged pattern of abuse or whatever. They're not, I don't think, suing Coco Ware personally, but in all of the reporting of this, Coco Ware is a WWE Hall of Famers accused of abuse in amended Ring Boys lawsuit. And so, again, no, it's fucking Coco. And I appreciate that maybe times have changed, but if you right now committed everybody to fucking prison, that in a men's locker room over a 30 fucking year period in the 60s, 70s, and 80s had ever as a rib grabbed the other guy's fucking balls or dick and squeezed them, the prisons would be overflowing.
I don't know about that.
I don't. Where the fuck did you go to school?
I went to school in New York. I don't know how they did it in the South.
Well, Jesus Christ, they cut you up there. Yeah. They stab you in the goddamn ribs and the groin and everything
down there. I don't know what's going on, but again, they're not accusing. I mean, it sounds like they have this incident in whatever they filed, but it's not like they're saying they want. I mean, at this point, Coco has to say something to at least defend himself. One way or the other.
Well, that's what I'm saying is they're not suing him in particular, but because he has been named in this for this fucking thing, everybody is saying he's accused in alleged abuse scandal of the Ring Boys. Well, so now Coco's linked to this for this bullshit. I mean, in all seriousness, let's have some element of proportion. And that's the one. If you had just looked at Coco and said, they're adding you to the sexual abuse scandal, he would have genuinely, honestly, with wide eyes said, to who, for what? What the fuck? I'm sure he doesn't even remember this happening. One of the 30 years or whatever, the goddamn locker room, jacking around, and suddenly he's brought into this fucking thing and drugged through the mud in the headlines.
They quote Tony Chimmel. Tony Chimmel can kind of, I don't know if clear it all up is the right thing, but he could at least give his.
Well, I'm sure he would tell you, yeah, Coco fucking patted him down and grabbed his balls, and they all laughed, and I told the kid, you ought to get out of here. I mean, that's Tuesday. What the fuck?
I'm looking on Wikipedia right now. This is news to me. I didn't realize this. Tony Chimmel, born in 1961, an American former pro wrestling ring announcer. He is signed to All Elite Wrestling.
What?
Where he works as a producer. He is best known for his time in WWE. I did not know he was with AEW.
What?
In April 2023, Chimmel revealed that he was working with AEW, assisting with production during their Orlando tapings. So, who knows?
Maybe he's not on just in Orlando when they're in Orlando, just not on the road. Because he's my age, for heaven's sake. I'm leaning over there. Now I'm back. He's my age. He needs to be semi-retired and enjoying the sunshine down there.
One last thing on all this Ring Boy stuff. Did anything else happen? Like, are they anywhere new, or is there anything other than this amended? It sounds like it's an amended complaint, or it's another complaint.
Well, no, it's new. It's new young Ring Boys.
It's new. It's actually new accusers.
Complaints. Okay. Yes.
Huh.
But Brian, the thing is, just whenever I think of Coco Ware, I will think of the teenage kid in at the back of the Louisville Gardens playing church songs on the piano for Christine Jarrett.
Oh.
And now, he might have to change his appearance. Last time I saw him, he was clean shaven. He might have to grow a beard or something, change the way he looks so he can go out in public without being harassed now. But that is a good idea.
I don't know where you're going. How is he on the piano?
He was pretty good on the piano. He wasn't Liberace, but he was okay. But I'm thinking that if he would change his appearance by growing a beard, maybe we found a loophole. If you have done something, ladies and gentlemen, maybe not ladies, I think you're disqualified, but gentlemen, in your life, if you've done something bad and somebody may recognize you, if you had a beard, now's the time to shave it. Change your appearance. Nobody will recognize you. You'll get away with this shit. They'll blame somebody else. And I know how you can do it, folks. Right now,
You sure do.
I sure do. Go to harrys.com, HARRYS.com/JCE. You're not only going to get away with some shit, you're going to save some money. You can get the trial kit, which is the 5-blade razor, the weighted, ergonomically designed handle, and the foaming shave gel, and a travel cover, along with written instructions of how to shave your bearded face for just $6, normally $10, but they cut the price just for us, harrys.com/JCE. So if you had a beard during any crime that you may have committed or unsavory act that you have done in your life, just shave it off and nobody will recognize you. But you can subscribe to Harry's because there's no sense tempting fate. Don't go outside and risk apprehension. Stay in the house, clean shaven, get them to deliver the razor blades to your door. And as long as the cops knock on your door, when they're looking for a bearded guy, you're slick shaved. Harrys.com/JCE. The trial kit, normally $10, only $6. And then it's up to you, fellas, to stay ahead of the law. And Father's Day is coming up. You want to go to prison on Father's Day?
Once again, if you need a good shave, that's what it's all about. They've been doing it for thousands of years. Why not try one today?
Well, Harry's hadn't been doing it for thousands of years. The human race has.
Yes, I'm talking about humans.
But Harry's, they perfected the thing. But basically, I don't even care about the shave now. Just try to get away with the shit and just change your appearance. A lot of people it would be a positive thing if they just changed their appearance, even if they haven't done anything wrong. Harrys.com/JCE.
Hey, Jim, real quick before we move on, because once again, it's going so well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing something here as a follow-up of an earlier discussion we had. It is being attributed to Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful. It's a tweet. It's not even a tweet. I'm not sure what this is, but it says, "Woof." I don't know why you begin with that.
Woof.
Ricochet really trolled the guy into getting media class for the whole PC. What do you think about the idea that everyone in developmental had to go for media training because of this Ricochet Javon Evans thing? Allegedly. Potentially.
Oh, my God. Well, and see, again, because they're owned by a corporate conglomerate that doesn't want to be accused of calling Tony a crackhead or a spade or whatever the case may be. And so now they have to call everybody together, say, don't say this. When in the wrestling business, for the first 125 years or so, if some guy knocked you and you went to his house and punched him the fuck out, you'd probably get a round of applause from your promoter.
Well, it is interesting, though. If there was social media in the 80s, let's say, don't you think if you went to Mid-South, knowing how Watts wrote down stuff and gave you guys rules, would there be a set of rules for how you interact with people on social media?
Yes, there would be, no doubt about it. And I'm not trying to say that there wouldn't, especially the way Watts was, but the rules would be more about defending the business and, if necessary, yourself than what you called somebody, or if you hurt their feelings, or if, it got attention or whatever in that respect, unless you were fighting with the opposition, which there's an element of that also here. In which case you're giving the opposition goddamn attention and promoting a match that's not going to happen.
Well, what a week for Ricochet. Of course, we'll get to AEW later on, but Ricochet obviously in this online match with someone he won't be wrestling, Javon Evans of NXT, but don't worry, he has a big upcoming match with Zach Gowen to look forward to. So things are really looking up.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when it happens, if it happens, unless... I don't know. I say unless sanity prevails, we know that's not going to happen. But is this cause for somebody to step in and establish like a curatorship of Tony?
Maybe.
Anyway, before we talk about the current crazy people, let's talk about the crazy people from the past, Brian. Because there was another episode of Dark Side of the Ring on Vice TV focusing on one of the crazier of the crazy people. In the land of fruits and nuts, he's the head cashew. Our friend Billy Jack Haynes. who, as I aptly and succinctly put it at the start of the program, started out his career as a star and finished up as a nobody. He went in reverse. And when you think about it, and especially from the footage that they showed, that was pretty much true. But I'm going to let you start and vent on all the historical inaccuracies and or dates that were misrepresented. But this was overall, I thought, and you can tell me if you felt the same way, more one of the shows about a guy who at one point was a wrestler, but has just more batshit crazy before and after potentially he was into business than he was while he was in it.
Yeah, this was Dark Side ... of the Ring. They spent a lot of time dealing with a jailhouse interview where he said nothing.
But his lawyer wouldn't let him.
Every single question, his lawyer, I mean, that's all we saw was him not being able to do it. Whoever his friend was, I found intriguing. He has some friend who very matter-of-factly would, we can't really talk about that, but there's verification. Oh, who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah, and why isn't he communicating with Billy Jack's attorney?
I thought you were really good on here. You know, again, I don't want to kill them for the historical stuff because obviously they're trying to tell a Billy Jack Haynes story, but if you're going to tell the story about him being a wacky, crazy wrestling character, why leave out everything? You know, why leave out? They said, like, oh, he was working all these smaller territories and then he went to the WWF in 1986. No. Actually, he went to the WWF in 1984. They put him on the front cover of that program riding a sled with Hulk Hogan and Wendy Richter and Barry Windham. And then he never arrived. Then he went to Crockett, where he got a big push. And they were going to give him a bigger push.
But wait, you skipped over. He was in Florida for a while too, but also the one I thought you were going to talk about that he skipped over. And I told him the story, but when he came to World Class, because Kerry was going to do the movie and they thought they were going to lose Kerry, or at least that they believed Kerry was going to do the movie. I don't think it got that far. And Chris Adams left town because he thought Billy Jack was going to fucking kill him. And that kind of lent itself to Billy Jack's overall demeanor and reputation. But yeah, and we've told that story here before. So look up the World Class stuff.
You wouldn't know from watching this that he was married to Jeannie Clark. Chris Adams was never married to Jeannie Clark. Billy Jack Haynes was. But that wasn't brought up here. But Billy Jack...
I don't know if Billy Jack remembers by this point that he was married.
Billy Jack walked out of every single place. Sean Waltman once told me, and Sean was a fan when Billy Jack hit Florida. He said Billy Jack was bigger than Dusty at that point in time. Again, Dusty had been there for a while, but Billy Jack was huge. And then Billy Jack was gone. And that happened it happened in Portland eventually. There wasn't too many people you think of that just immediately got that level of a push everywhere and always had that intensity. You think of the early 80s magazines, you think of Tony Atlas, you think of Kerry Von Erich, you think of Hogan, eventually the Road Warriors. But him, Billy Jack, it seemed like he was a dead certain pick to be a major star in the business, but that's before everyone realized he's a kook. And the other thing I'll say as a critique is, I think this was an example of the people who make this show being too obsessed with shoot interviews. And this seemed more like a love letter to the Billy Jack Haynes shoot interviews that they love than a coherent, comprehensive story. I know. Then you hear, they only have 42 minutes. Let me tell you something. You could tell a coherent story. You don't need reenactments of everything, especially when no one looks like Ken Patera. You got some fucking schlub in there. Patera was good here. No, the reenactments, I know it's like their thing, their look, but at a certain point you have to realize all they're doing is taking away from time and story, and Jericho sucks as a narrator. But other than that, it was at least interesting.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, I like the talking heads because again, even if my Dallas story made the cutting room floor, Dave Sierra, Cuban Assassin, was instrumental because he's one of the guys that helped him break in to begin with in Portland. Rip Oliver's son, because Rip, and they talked about, and we'll get to what Billy Jack did to Rip later on in his life later. But when Billy came to Dallas, he brought Rip Oliver with him because he wanted the story I got, and I managed Rip. So I got the story from him was that Billy wanted at least one heel he knew he could work with. And they said, okay. And Rip is another guy that had helped him break in. And when Billy Jack gave his notice because they found out that Kerry was coming back, and I guess if whatever the story was, they didn't want to honor the guarantee, and I'll just go back to Portland. That's when they finished Rip up by hurting Mike because and doing a deal there because Rip went back to Portland with Billy. So Dave Sierra, Rip Oliver's son, Uncle Dave was on, Mike Miller, and Lynn Denton, the grappler, who have been around the Northeast forever, and Bill Alfonso, Fonzie.
Northwest.
Or what did I say, the Northeast?
Northeast.
I'm so used to the other side, the other hand. But like you said, it really, he started as the biggest star that he would be for the first few years. But by the time he got to the WWF in 86 for the run, that was the last year and a half. Then it was over. And then he was bleh. Patera is the only one who thought that he was a nice guy. And even then later on, he said, well, he was manipulative and had an agenda. But otherwise, he had a good personality.
Everyone I've ever talked to that knew him, I don't know if nice was used, quiet guy. I think nice was used.
Quiet.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is that we had heard in the Crockett locker room, and now with his record, he had a couple of assaults, but he didn't have a murder or homicide or whatever. But we had heard in the Crockett locker room when he came in that he had gotten a fight with some guy and hit him so hard he killed him. And had been in prison. I think he'd been in prison over the assaults. Apparently the guy lived. But that's why he had a real weak handshake with the boy, not even the dead fish workers handshake, just like, I don't want to squeeze too hard. And he was very soft-spoken, like he didn't want to get mad, lose control of his temper, which when you hear some of the testimony from some of the people that were around him a lot, that may make some sense. But it just, he's very quiet, very, peaceful, but what the fuck? Almost too much.
And I know they really didn't address it, and I know you really couldn't make money there or anything, but his run in 95 in Memphis was incredible. He was the best heel in the business.
Well, and that was the thing that it was a brief period of time, and we did talk about that also because they reminded me, the Dark Side guys, that he worked for me. That he was there at the Super Bowl show.
Super Bowl against Brad Armstrong, right?
Yeah. He had, after the WWF, he went back to Portland, tried to run opposition to Don Owens, the guy who had broke him in, but he was going to be the Vince McMahon of Oregon. And when that didn't work, he was out of the business for a couple years, as far as anybody knew. And then he showed up. Randy Hales was booking at that time in Memphis and showed up there as a heel. And he didn't have the physique. He wasn't cut like he was before, but he still had the size. He was so imposing. He could carry it off, right?
Yeah, he had a run in, I think, 91 in WCW opposite Matt Bourne as Big Josh.
Yes, that's right.
He was, I think, Black Blood, maybe.
Yeah, the lumberjack had some evil
under
opposition.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of these guys, when Vince got rid of them in 88, the only place they really had to go, because they never ended up working for WCW, was the UWF. So a lot of these guys, when Herb Abrams started up, you saw them. Ken Patera, Killer Bees, Billy Jack Haynes, Bruno. Like everyone that left WWF in 1988 ended up working for Herb Abrams.
Well, because he was kind of like an older, poorer, and potentially already crazier version of Tony Khan. He just wanted to hire everybody that was available to be hired that he had been a fan of. But with Billy Jack, he OD'd on the plane, which is what the final straw in the WWF was. And he said he was taking 25 pills a day in the 80s of whatever description or kind. And he left guys hanging and he blamed his head and drugs in the Oregon Wrestling Federation. And that's when he started doing the shoot promos. He was a big time coke dealer and he did this and that. And I think we talked about it at the time a while back. I do not doubt that Billy Jack Haynes sold some people some cocaine. I do not doubt that there is that he probably beat a person up a time or two trying to collect some money for himself or other people. He was obviously somebody that would sell people stories and bills of goods and try to capitalize on it. But then when the stories get so bizarre and so far-fetched, and yes, the lawyer is advising him to leave certain subjects alone, but when one of his stories is he delivered coke to Andy Gibb, and he was the witness to the kids on the track murders, and his dad was either Vince McMahon Sr. or Lenny Montana.
The Andy Gibb story, is it that it was the coke that killed him, or he just sold him coke? Because that's not outrageous.
Well, no, I think it's the coke that killed him, but yeah, just that he just happened to, he's the Forrest Gump of crime and happened to be involved in all these things with all these famous people.
If you walk around with pockets of coke, you could run into all sorts of people.
Well, but as Bill Alfonso said,
like
when,
that.
Well, but then he should know. He had the best line of the show. When Billy Jack has said, well, he would try to allude that he was working for the Clintons from Arkansas. Fonzie said, why the fuck would Bill Clinton call Billy Jack Haynes? And then sometimes the easiest, most correct answer is the simplest. Why the fuck would Bill Clinton call Billy Jack Haynes? It's a goddamn coked up, lunatic, fucking punch drunk, as they used to say, wrestler. You could probably find more reliable fucking people in the special forces. And he said the Bush family was involved in 9/11. And he got beaten up for real by somebody for some reason in 2006, but he told the local journalist that was working on his story out there that a local crime family did it at their car lot over a bad coke deal in the 80s where he ripped them off. Well, why did they wait 20 years? Could it have been for something else or just some random motherfucker that he tried to con and he concocted a story? Because the same journalist said that he told Billy Jack a story about a murder that he was working on that Billy Jack had heard for the first time. And 2 months later, Billy Jack was telling the journalist that he was there when it happened.
Was that a journalist or a cop?
No, that was a journalist that was working on that story.
I thought that was a cop, as I remembered back. Okay.
But I mean, and then when he was homeless, Billy Jack, he moved in with Rip Oliver when Rip was dying from cancer. And Rip's son said he was stealing Rip's pills. And he talked Rip into doing a deal where they took money from the Cauliflower Alley Club to save Rip's house. Rip knew he was dying and they just split it. But then he just, again, he was homeless and just moves into this house of a guy that helped break him in and steals his pills and lives in his fucking house when he's dying. And then when his other friend died, that's when he married the friend's mother, who was 85 years old. Go ahead.
You have to hate hearing that if you're someone who donates to Cauliflower Alley or someone who, gives them money. The idea they could be getting scammed like that, that's pretty awful.
Yeah, and all the way, and stealing the cancer patient's medicine. And
I'm glad you brought up his haircut. Although you said Pete Best. Pete Best never really had a mop top. It's more like Brian Jones from the Dead.
Not from the Grateful Dead, from the fucking actual dead.
What a great head of hair. I mean, you saw him in prison. It's all the way trimmed down and no bald spots that are visible. What a great head of hair.
Well, that's the way to look at the positive side of things, Brian.
Yeah.
He killed his wife and he stole cancer patients' medicine and he ripped off all these people, but he had a hell of a head of hair.
A thick head of hair. I think people would kill for something like that. Yeah.
Or he might kill them and
take their hair? What's he going to do?
So kill them and take their hair.
It's the science of the lambs.
Yes, that's who's responsible for this whole thing. But God, and the point is, again, he had a friend, and they showed the picture of the friend who was a younger guy. And when he dies, then Billy Jack marries the guy's mother, who's 15 years older than Billy Jack. And the friend that you pointed out of Billy Jack's, it was, oh, he loves her. He's the only thing in the world, or she's the only thing in the world that he loves. She's had dementia. Her family didn't approve of Billy Jack. He's found another way to fucking live in somebody's house. And then he shoots her in the head and claims it was a mercy killing. And Lynn Denton, the co-winner of the line of the show, shot her in the head and called it a mercy killing. I don't know, brother. I mean, well, that's about, Lynn's about as wrestling as you can get. I don't know, brother. What the fuck? If you were going to put an elderly, infirm, sick loved one out of their misery, is there a way to do the killing with more mercy than hold still, honey, I don't want to miss, bam, and shooting her in the head? What about the old pillow smother you saw in the Betty Davis movies?
Let's not recommend ways to kill.
Well, I'm not recommending anything. It's up to the individual perpetrator as to whether they want to do these things, but I'm saying there's less violent ways of doing it, more merciful.
Well, I don't know what you want me to say about that. But
well, you could admit that the lambs agree.
I can't speak for the lambs. Who am I?
Well, bah, say. We'll speak for those lambs. Bah. Humbug. Next week, the Sheik, baby. I can't wait. I want to see the Sheik.
Is that the last episode of the season?
I don't know. I haven't been counting. They're so good. They just appear before me every week, and I live from week to week for the night when I can watch more. Because you know why?
Because you're on it.
Because it's only 45 minutes with commercials, and there's no actual goddamn wrestling matches from today on it. It's the easiest thing I watch all week. Everything else is 3 hours long and a goddamn gymnastics meet in the middle of a goddamn romper room.
Have you ever been on more episodes in a season?
Well, it's called for. They've done surveys.
You're the highlight of the show very often. I agree.
I was the subject of 3 double-blind clinical trials. And both of those blind people said that I was the best one on the show. That way they got out of the clinic quicker.
And the third one sent you the clock.
And goddamn it, what?
It is 10:47.
No, it's not.
You got one
it's
number
not.
right.
Next week, the Sheik.
All right. Well, let's light a fire under this show and burn, baby, burn.
What that's not a pitch to any sponsor.
Oh, well, it is your show, so the pitches are all yours.
You know what I'm thinking? If you haven't heard of,
I have no idea.
You don't know. Well, you'll find out. If you haven't heard the Billy Jack Haynes story or any of these other Dark Side of the Ring stories, Brian, you don't want to be left out. You want to hear things. You want to know what's going on in the world. If you haven't heard these stories, maybe the problem is you. Maybe it's not that the stories aren't being told. Maybe that you're not picking up on them. Because it's not just the laying down of the stories, it's the picking up of the stories. And I have had situations in time, I've told you, I was hit by lightning. And I have a very specialized situation with my hearing where every once in a while, in a loud room with a lot of background noise, when somebody's talking to me from across the table, I just mimic their expression. If they're smiling, I smile. When they laugh, I laugh. Or if they look mad, I shake my head in disgust. You know why, Brian? Because I can't hear one goddamn thing they're saying. And I understand there's a lot of people out there in today's world, because especially because of the level of background noise, which has never been louder. If you walk down the street, what do you hear? A bunch of goddamn nonsense, bunch of honking and a bunch of clattering and a bunch of stepping and a bunch of hammering. And that's, I'm telling you, it's all you can do to just not go crazy with all the noise. And you can't hear people when they're talking. Somebody might come up to you on the street and say, "Hey, would you like to tickle my taint?" And because they smile, then you smile. And the next thing you know, you're in a back alley somewhere doing things that you really didn't think you were going to do that day.
What kind of example is this? What Jim is trying to say is that many of us
need to hear things clearly.
Suffer from hearing loss. And of course, there are many things that could cause it. A lot of us go to or have gone to a lot of concerts and didn't put anything in our ears to protect ourselves. And now we're dealing with the ramifications. And we have a friend who can help with the ramifications of life and make you so that you can hear all sorts of things that you want to hear. Let's stay appropriate. Go, Jim.
Yes. Well, they don't make ramifications. They make hearing aids. Now, as you said, if you've gone to concerts with no protection, and let's face it, folks, when you're young, it's awful hard to get those fucking, especially the lubricated condoms, over the top of your ears.
Ear protection, I'm speaking of.
No matter how you've damaged your ears, no matter what's been poked into them or what kind of loud sounds, the point is, if you can't hear, you need to do something about it. And our friends at MD Hearing, who sponsor this fine podcast, make high quality, easy to use, rechargeable hearing aids with exceptional sound quality that are personalized to your hearing profile. And they've recently cut their price in half despite all of this inflation craziness. You want to know why? Because what they did was they found out that if you make a lot of things, then they get cheaper. So they were able to cut their price by, they've got millions of these things and they want to stick them in your ears. And that's why they are now telling you about this. They have just launched the Neo XS, MD Hearing's smallest hearing aid ever. It fits inside your ear. Nobody's going to know it's there. As a matter of fact, you have to have also your family members sign a document that swears them to silence.
There is no swearing, no document signing, no.
Well, they're not allowed to tell anybody you're wearing this thing because nobody's going to be able to see it. You can actually pass swearing in a court of law that you don't have this thing in, because the only way that the prosecutor would be able to prove differently is if he crawled up inside your ear like some kind of brain worm. But I'll tell you what, MD Hearing was found by an ENT surgeon. That's E-N-T, ENT, who saw how many of his patients needed hearing aids but couldn't afford them, and he made it his mission to develop a quality hearing aid that anyone could afford, and now anyone can hear because they can afford the aid that he has built to help you with your hearing. They've sold over 2 million of them. That's what I was talking about. They made a bunch of these things, and that's how that they can pass the savings on to you, and they offer a 45-day risk-free trial with a 100% money-back guarantee. You can't hear good. You try these. You still can't hear good. They'll give you your money back. They haven't figured out a way to screw you on it because you're deaf, but you're not blind. But that may be coming. But right now,
that won't be coming. These are honorable people, good people.
Well, right now, they haven't been able to figure out any way to. They can't figure out a way to keep your money if you're not happy. They're still working on it, but right now you can buy with confidence.
They are happy with their product, and they think you will be, which we think you will be. We have our own set of... I have one, you have one, they have many more for many of you. If you have hearing loss, and so many of you do, maybe from me screaming at you, many of you do, now's the time. Now's the time to do something about it.
Yes, they were just selected over there at MD Hearing to be the hearing aid supplier for top Medicare Advantage plans. So they're probably already in your grandparents' head. Make sure they end up in your head too.
Well, again, the audience, you know, some of them may be the grandparents. It's not about getting your grandparents.
The Medicare, well, fuck, I ain't going to be able to be eligible for Medicare for 2.5 more years. Get the high-quality, affordable hearing aids that you deserve before you crumble into dust of old age with MD Hearing. And right now, go to shopmdhearing.com and use that. That's MD Hearing, HEARING, shopmdhearing.com, and use the promo code JCE. You're going to get a pair of hearing aids for just $297. Comes along with a free charging case, which is a $100 value. And as I mentioned, 45-day risk-free trial, 100% money-back guarantee, or just wander around the house in a confused state because you don't know what's going on around you because you can't hear a thunder. You could do that too. We're not stopping you.
That's right. Choose the senses, including the sense of hearing, with MD Hearing. One more time, Jim, for the listeners that could use some help. What's that promo code?
ShopMDHearing.com.
Ooh.
Promo code JCE. That's for the listeners that are hard of hearing.
All right. Well, this is your show.
All righty. Well, should we start talking about the AEW? I'm switching my, yeah.
It is not fun to watch this show anymore. It used to be, even when it was bad, there was still a newness. You still would see people pop up like, who the fuck is this guy? There was still such really bad stuff that at least I knew we'd have some fun stuff to talk about. It seems like there's less of anything that matters on this show.
They are down to the kids they've got. The style has won out for the most part. There are some exceptions. The Hurt Syndicate. I can't think of any others. Where it's the kids that want to perform. They're the actors. They're the auteurs. They're the performers. They're the multi-talented individuals that want to come out and emote. Emote is a good word for what a lot of what they're doing here. And it's just, it's not even as appealing as it was to that segment of the audience at the start of this thing, to this project, of which it was appealing, because the talent, such as it is stale. There are no more game changers. They've buried all of those. The millions of dollars he spent in the last 12 months is already kind of, and they're working on just making Osprey completely uninteresting.
Well, I'll wait till we get to Osprey to talk about that, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there. Because they're putting more, apparently, emphasis on Adam Page. Or as the guy called him on Twitter, Magnum LGBTA. He comes out there, and again, this is another one of those things that in these kids' mind, this sounds good. He's concocted this story and he has this material that he's prepared and he's going to deliver. This is his chance to have the stage all to himself so he can emote about whether we're supposed to cheer for him or not, or what we're supposed to think about him, or what the fuck he's doing, right? Because it's so confusing. And he comes out there and it's almost like the South Park episode, and he's got the spotlight on him. After what happened to me and my family, I wanted revenge and justice, and I found it. But I took it from another man. I took his only hopes and dreams, and I nearly killed him. And after our cage match, I thought I'd feel joy and closure, but I felt nothing. Because I thought maybe if I went back and finished the job, AE killed him, right? I could go back and finish the job and I could find that joy and closure, but I couldn't go and finish it, and I don't know why. So then I unleashed that anger on anyone who got in my way because I thought that would give me some catharsis. Who the fuck talks like this? It's fake bullshit. It's bad attempts at script writing from some wannabe fantasy Hollywood script writer. And no, Nobody that was actually dangerous as a physical human being in real life would talk like this or have any of these emotions. And when he goes through this goddamn thing, as soon as he mentions Swerve, they chant Swerve's house, not because Swerve's necessarily any more stunningly over, but because that's where they get to chant. And Page says that he'll never forgive or forget what Swerve did, but he put it behind him and made the decision to enter the Owen Cup, and he beat Alexander and he beat Felcher. And now he's going to face Ospreay in the finals at Double or Nothing. And as soon as he mentions Will Ospreay's name, guess whose music plays, Brian? The pony known as Will Ospreay. They have been watching the WWE so long, but they're at the same time have been alive such a short period of time that they think this is the way that it's always been and supposed to be. And they're not way past sick and fucking fed up with it yet. And now Ospreay comes out so they can do a duet. And they can double demote for the fucking fans in the audience. And they stare at each other with their mean faces, Brian, while the fans start chanting, "Happy birthday." Because, of course, they know it's Will Ospreay's birthday. Why wouldn't they? And Ospreay actually apologizes for interrupting. He calls Page's interview his therapy session. And my God, this continued to go on. Ospreay, although after hearing Page, he sounded like Heyman a little bit. But he said he liked how Page showed leadership to the Dork Order. Jesus Christ. He actually reminded people of that goddamn thing that was probably the first thing that started leading to Page's downward spiral years ago. In booking, not talking about in the story. In the actual booking, his booking's been shit since he had to converse with job guys. And then Ospreay said, but last week we saw you smile. And we all want you to beat your demons, bruv, and reclaim your spot. But at Double or Nothing, I'm not losing. Tony has booked his only two baby faces that anybody gives two shits and a tickle about to fight each other. Instead of being able to, as we talked about last week, have Felcher in the finals put Ospreay over so he can go to the stadium and put an end to this goddamn Moxley nightmare. Like any goddamn rational human being would do. And now Ospreay started screaming. I've been doing the media, the meet and greets. I'm taking pictures with kids, bruv. It's not about your redemption. It's about my ascension. Explain to me, Brian, who talks like this in real life and who gives a shit to watch people do it. They're soft pussies whining about their spot. There's no real personal issues. No, you broke my leg or you stole my belt or you fucked my woman. It's either pussy shit that nobody cares about or you burned my house down that nobody believes. Am I exaggerating?
With these specific people, no, you're not exaggerating. And I think that's part of the problem. Tony can't book it. And these guys on their own can't come up with things that make sense, things that are good, things that sound real. Adam Page has been like a depressed actor for almost 6 years now. Like, he's no longer the young guy in the company. He's no longer, this guy's going to have a great future. We may have already seen as good as it's going to get from Adam Page.
We have seen your future.
And then Ospreay, I mean, even Dave, I don't know if you saw the quote because a few people sent it over to me. Dave called that Ospreay because he goes out there and he doesn't dress like a star. Did you see that?
No, I mean, I agree with it. And that's, shocking that Dave and I would see eye to eye or that he would publicly express that opinion. But no, he dresses like some fucking schlub like the rest of these guys because they think they're too cool to dress like professionals or stars. But the money's the same. So, why not?
Why book this match?
Well, anyway, so as they went face to face again, that's Osprey and Hangnail. Here comes Don with the whole family. I think Trent, Archer, Alexander, Take a Shit was out there.
It looks like a size chart. Rocky Romero was out there. Trent was out there. It was ridiculous.
But they didn't line them. It was uneven. They didn't line them up in the row. They should have. And the fans are booing Don. That's the thing. Like Dominic will boo over him. Don actually said that Osprey, the stupidest day that you ever lived was leaving the Don Phallus family. And remember, Osprey asked respectively if he could, and Don agreed. Remember, we said that was the stupidest thing I'd ever seen. I've never seen a guy, a heel, just, can I leave? Oh, okay. And then he tried to cut the promo where Osprey wouldn't trust Paige. But then Osprey took the microphone, and his moment was he was going to challenge for a big tag team match, but the fans independently decided to start chanting, "Fuck Don Callis." So Osprey had to stop and just stand there for like 10 seconds while they got it out of their system. And then he started it again, with the exact same verbiage to challenge for a tag match. But that's when Paige grabbed his wrist and gave him a mean look. And they just stared at each other the whole time that Don was accepting a tag match next week. And the fans were chanting, "Shut the fuck up" at Don. They were just standing. Osprey at one point was snarling at Paige as they were looking in each other's eyes. Dramatic storytelling. I'm not saying that if any of this material was any good and that any of the talent could act, that they couldn't pull it off, but this ain't it, dog. What are your thoughts on whether this is it or not?
I don't think it's it. I think I've shared most of my thoughts. I think Osprey is a really talented guy, but he seems to just want to be one of the guys. That's why he dresses like a schlub. And Adam Page, I'm just sick of Adam Page. Again, like I said, it's almost 6 years now. And I don't want to see this character evolve anymore. I want to see this character I'm sick of him. But we'll see what happens. I'm not really looking forward to the match as of this second.
Briefly, another one of our formerly favorite things has evolved. FTR have just switched heel. And in-ring wise, let's face it, still, although this is fainter praise than it used to be, they're the best in-ring wrestling working tag team in the company. But they and Stokely now, their manager out of nowhere, come in, they start pushing Tony around and they talk negative about him. Stokely called him a pale, decrepit, pasty piece of shit. And Tony stood up and bowed up at him until he shoved Tony down, and then FTR blocked Tony off. I think Tony could have took him. But they had to cut a promo on Danny Garcia tomorrow on Collision. They've just turned heel, and they have got nobody to work with. And they're reduced to having to work with Danny Garcia on Collision. So the heel turn didn't elevate them at all, because it was done just so they could turn on their best friend, who immediately went away. And when he comes back, there's one of him and two of them. So how did this set them up for a tag team program?
It could either be Edge and Danny Garcia.
Oh, Christ.
A lot of people think eventually we may get Edge and Christian, but Edge and Danny Garcia may be a thing. Daniel Garcia is just not it. They're wasting their time. I could say this now. It's been years. I think it's a waste of time.
Well, speaking of a waste of time, we had a world title eliminator 4-way match with Toni Storm versus Thunder Rosa versus Anna Jay versus Penelope Pitstop. And the world title eliminator 4-way means that the winner of this gets a world title match, right? With one of the world champions they have. And
Isn't Toni Storm one of the world champions they have?
Well, I thought I don't know what the fuck is going on, but it doesn't matter because I don't care. But at one point in this four-way match, Megan Brain just came out to the ring because it was on fast forward. I saw her, I stopped. Came out to the ring, just got in the ring and started not only beating people up, but doing random wrestling spots in this match in front of the referee. And they didn't stop it because, as the announcer said, well, it's no DQ. Just random people not affiliated can come in and start doing actual spots. And then Harley Cameron came out and chased her off with a fake lead pipe. And the match continued and Tony Storm won. So once again, all these little details, does it really matter? And all this does is teach these guys and girls that this shit is normal and is somehow going to work and get over because the checks cash. So they think it's good. If you held them to a standard, how about what was the reason why Action Andretti and Leo Rush were just wandering around the arena in the crowd?
Well, they were a tag team. Obviously, they're checking out the competition.
But there was no competition wrestling, and they came out before any tag team had even emerged to begin with, and they're just wandering around, and then they didn't do anything. Did they? Did they do anything?
I don't think so, no.
Did you really ever see where they went?
Well, they probably found some seats.
So here comes the Hurt Syndicate after Andretti and Rush find their seats. An MVP introduces them and gets the big cheers and asks the question we've been asking. Where are all the best tag teams? Why aren't they stepping up? Has anybody around here got what it takes? And suddenly music plays, and I swear to God, Darius and Dante Martin came out with looks on their faces like, I don't know, fucking Ethel and Julius Rosenberg had before their fucking execution.
Jesus.
It was, they just automatically, I mean, the one started, hey, this is actual material. We've been a little down on our luck lately. So we see this as an opportunity. That's the way the baby faces came out to confront the heel tag team champions. We've been down on our luck lately. We see this as an opportunity. We're underdogs. Nobody has any. This is their material. We're underdogs. Nobody has their money on us. But while the other guy was speaking, the one was looking scared shitless. And then they said, Detroit, we've proven we can hold our own. You want to see a miracle? And the fans were like, eh. No, they didn't want to see a miracle. Well, they might have wanted to see a miracle, but they didn't see any miracle workers. And so this is the level of competition that comes out. And then as they finish their promo, basically saying, look, we're nobody and we never win and nobody thinks we're going to now. But what the fuck? It doesn't matter if you kill us. Just fight us. And then MJF comes out from behind and levels both these guys and gets a fuck cheered out of them. They're just fans. MJF. And he beat up both the baby faces, and one of them, if you can call it bleeding, I think he had a little blade-itis, did one of the Martins, and he got a pap smear. But these guys, by the way, will dive off the fucking roof, but they will not blade their fucking head a fucking half an inch. Give me that choice every day. If I've got to do one of the two, I'll remain on the ground with the sword in my hand. And so then MJF, after he's laid waste to these two goofuses, gets in the ring and gets up in Bobby Lashley's face and says, I hurt people. And the place blew. Yay! And the fans started chanting, we hurt people. And then Lashley's big response, where he was apparently, he did say, apparently, I'll give you your answer next week. His microphone was turned off for the first half of the goddamn thing. But anyway, so now next week we're going to get our resolution. And we've also seen that there ain't a lot of tag teams around there. And at least MJF is starting to use the coin of the realm that the Hurt Syndicate deal in. Brian, again, except for the fact that the Martin brothers just looked like cooked gooses when they wandered out there. What'd you think?
Yeah, when they wandered out there, and then one guy beat both of them up.
Well, but in all fairness, he came from behind.
That's right. Where was Leo and Action Andretti? That's what I'd like to know.
They found their seats.
What do you think will happen next week? Do you think it's as simple as they let MJF in? Do they keep it going? Do they say, Swerve, we're going to let Cedric in? Because Cedric's a free agent again. What do you think will happen?
Well, but I don't know. You never know what's their relationship with Cedric these days. How did he end up there, back there at the Evil Empire, while the other Hurts were free and clear to join this band of merry pranksters? What was that trajectory like? Did Cedric bail on the Hurts?
I don't know if it was whose decision was what, but I guess the point is, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think they better have a decision next week, or now it's going to get old, because now he's done that. So we need to turn the page, enter the new chapter, whatever cliche that you would want to use. We need to see what's going to be next, because there's really no way that you can put this off again after that presentation without people go, oh, come on now. But if he joins, then hopefully we will just be revving this thing up. But again, we got the problem. Who are they going to work with?
Well, there you go. That was going to be my next question. FTR just turned heel, and these guys are kind of heel, but it could go either way. But they just turned heel, and they're doing something else with other people. Moxley and Claudio, at least look-wise, it's not ridiculous in there. You know,
Moxley's the singles champion.
Right, exactly. You can't, but Yuta would make it ridiculous looking. Yuta being competitive with Shelton, correct? Bobby.
They crippled Pac the other week.
Pac's not there. Brian Cage, I think, is out again, injured.
Yeah.
So that tag team, him and Lance Archer, even though they already kind of ran through them, I think they ran through the Guns already.
No, they were going to have that match, and then he got hurt before they had it.
That's what it was. Where are the Guns? Whatever happened to them?
Apparently they got unloaded.
The Bucks are not going to be working with the Hurt Syndicate, I can't imagine.
No, they won't be. And the Hurt Syndicate I don't know if anybody would be man enough to walk up to the Hurt Syndicate and pitch that preposterous idea.
Well, I guess the question now that I'm thinking about all these options, and even do they need to be baby faces?
Well, theoretically, they already are, but they don't need to act like it, because that will remove the appeal.
But who they work with, in terms of who they work with, actually, I'm thinking more than anything, because I can think of lots of heel options. Not that they're good. And some of them we have to kind of put together, but there aren't any babyface options.
There ain't a lot of options. And that's, again, they can't fall in the trap of, because the people are cheering for the Hurt Syndicate, make them baby faces, and suddenly MVP can't do anything when an opposing manager interferes, or, Shelton Benjamin's not going to launch a guy with a suplex because they're double teaming Lashley, but he hasn't got the tag and the referee's keeping him out. Then the problem with AEW is all of their baby faces have been presented as so impotent, with tiny, tiny little penises that do not function. And they never win, and they always get taken advantage of, and they're suckers for a goddamn, not even a good storyline of bullshit. And the heels look cooler in contrast. When you had cool heels, Ric Flair, the Four Horsemen, but the goddamn baby faces were just as cool, Road Warriors, Magnum TA, whatever, that works. but not Undertaker and the Hart Foundation and Shawn Michaels and when all those people were on opposite sides. That works, but not when they're fucking Spitball Bailey. Anyhow, you know what the problem is that the Hurt Syndicate are open for business, but they only deal in the currency of violence, Brian, and a lot of people are not able to reach into their pocket and pull out a good old-fashioned ass whipping. That's the problem right there. You need to have in your back pocket, ladies and gentlemen, at all times, if you're going to be in business, a good old-fashioned ass whipping. And right now, we can tell you how you can not only show people that you're open for business, but you can have a good old-fashioned ass whipping in your back pocket ready to pull it out because you're going to have a big brother supporting you by the name of Shopify. Because Shopify, and hold on here, just want to remind you about that. Shopify is the best converting checkout on the planet. Shopify has the iconic purple Shop Pay button that's used by millions of businesses around the world to take people's money and bring it in to be their very own. Shopify can spread your brand's word with built-in marketing and email tools to find and keep new customers. And Shopify, they give you that leg up from day one with hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates to express your brand style. Forget about the code. They're going to help you through it. Inventory to payments to analytics. You know, it's important to have a leg up in business, Brian, and they're going to send somebody out. All you got to do is be on your front porch at 9 o'clock that following Monday morning, and the Shopify crew are going to come out. You stick your leg up. They're going to get underneath it, and they're going to boost you up to where you can see the top of the profits. And that money's going to start rolling in, and then you're going to use some of that money to get that guy out from between your legs and put you down on the ground where you can go spend it. But Shopify,
what?
That's you heard what I said. He'll put you down as long as you tip him.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's not talk about tips except for the tip that we can give you one businessman to another. When we needed someone to power our online store, our shirts for the drive-thru, the corny shirts, the Travis Heckel artwork shirts, ArcadiaVanguard.com, or look on the shop app, we turned to our friends at Shopify. Jim, that's the kind of tip we could tell the listeners. It's a tip about who they can work with.
We can put that tip right in there. Just the tip is enough.
Just a tip of business expertise.
It should be enough. Just a wink's as good as a nod to a blind man, but just this word should be good for you, folks, because Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all the e-commerce in the United States. Even household names like Mattel, all the way down to little brands just getting started. So 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, that is just the tip in there, boy. But sooner or later, they're going to expand and intrude and protrude and be inserted all the way up to 100%. And boy, then things are going to explode over and over again. And you can be right there along with Shopify when they explode all over your customers and drench you in cash. So that leg up, that's just foreplay. Folks, if you want to see less carts being abandoned, it's time for you to head over to Shopify.com/JCE because you're going to be able to sign up for your $1 a month trial period. They will show you for only the low price of $1 a month. That's 4 quarters. That's 10 dimes. That's 100 pennies. I don't know how many S&H green stamps, but it doesn't matter. They're out of business. $1 a month trial period. They'll show you what they can do for your business and your potential retirement future. And they will take money from other people and they will give it to you. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Through the legal means of a sale. Commerce.
Well, I'm just shortening the process. There's a lot of details. That's why you need them and their $1 a month trial period.
Sounds like you're shortening the process right through Nottingham Forest. Let's talk about business.
Well, All you know is that they got money and they're giving it to you. You don't have to know where it came from or what means it was collected under. Your hands are clean. Shopify.com/JCE that will exchange wealth from one person to you in some manner that they'll tell you about off the air. But that person ain't going to have the money no more. It's going to be you.
Let's talk about treating your customers to a great experience.
.com, $1 a month. $1 a month. That's just a trial period now, but you'll find out quickly enough you can't do without these people. Just like Vegas couldn't do without the mob, you can't do without Shopify.
Let's not make that comparison. Just like your business needs a helping hand to get the right online action.
Yes, the action.
Shopify.
You need a piece of the action.
Shopify will get you that piece.
Bugsy Siegel will be every step of the way supervising to make sure you get your own piece of the action.
That's all Hollywood. This has nothing to do with any of that, ladies and gentlemen. Shopify's there for you one more time. Jim, one more time. Just one promo code.
Just one time for Shopify.com/JCE for more of this and not the other thing. Well, next they had a little segment where the Buckaroos were in the back playing heel so Sleepy could say bitch and Ricochet could get in there and be all stoogey. And then the Buckaroos opened the door to go in their locker room, and there's the Boar Horseman sitting there in the dark lighting with the spookiness like it's the dungeon. So they're going to have some interaction. And then we go to the Ring of Honor World TV title, which is now owned by Nick Plain with Christian Cage and Mama and the whole group. They bring Rhino in to be Nick's opponent. Rhino is from Detroit. People remembered him. He was over with them. He was probably one of the more popular guys when the people saw him on the show because they remember him when wrestling was kind of good. And he was good. And now he looks more like Bam Bam Bigelow right now. He's gained a little weight, but he's retired, right? But the fans were into him. I don't think that anybody, including Rhino, wanted to go 15 minutes at 100 miles an hour with this kid, but what the fuck they beat him in 2 minutes, and it was so preposterous. Literally, Rhino does a tackle, and then this dipshit just cut him off. He didn't heal him. He just stopped him, put a boot up, and drop kicked him off the turnbuckle. Didn't even poke him in the eye. And he gets 30 seconds of heat. And then Rhino makes a comeback. Kid takes 3 bumps. Rhino hits him with a spine buster. It looked like $1 million, got a 2 count, and went for the gore. And again, the kid avoided the gore and caught Rhino with the, what they call it now, the unprettier Christian's finish. But not in any cheating way. And it looked like shit. And you could tell that he didn't know how to do it. And boom, it was there, and he covered him 1, 2, 3. And the fans started chanting, bullshit, bullshit. They weren't chanting bullshit because the guy won. They were chanting bullshit because of how it happened and in the time it happened in.
Well, and the company's whole thing is pushing the quality of the matches, and then you do something like this where the fans are actually excited to see a match and you take it away quickly. What do you expect?
Exactly. And it is I'm always up for seeing Rhino. But if he wasn't up for, in shape for whatever, for 6 or 7 minutes, and the kid be a heel so that it meant something, then just don't do it.
Hey, what do you think of this Christian Nick Wayne thing? Is it worth it for it to play out? Are you into it at all, or do you just want it all to go away?
Well, I think at this point it all needs to go away because the whole thing is, if this is going to be some way that they can eventually, as you're predicting, get Christian and Edge back together, It's an awful odd way to go about it.
Well, I don't know.
Just to,
I don't know if this is that. I think eventually.
well, they ought to get moving. It's not like anybody wants to wait 6 months to see the resolution of any of this shit.
Because the other option is that I'm all for elevating people, and Edge certainly should elevate people, but not Daniel Garcia. You know, so if it's like Edge and Daniel Garcia versus FTR, I'd rather him just team with Christian, and let's get some memorable tag matches.
Well, but also here's the thing, Christian, instead of spending this much time on, as I mentioned on last week's show, Nick Wayne, sure, he's a wonderful young man. They signed him before he was ready. He looks like any other indie guy. He's 19 or 20 years old. He needs to be bigger. He needs more experience. He needs somebody to tell him how to fucking be a heel if he's going to be one. And he's on national TV. If they had to put Christian with Hobbs and give him this concerted long-term oomph behind him. Or, again, where's Wardlow?
Where's Wardlow? On top of the mountain.
Is he? He's on top of the mountain waiting for Darby. They're going to pull the trigger on that. It's going to be the biggest angle in the history of wrestling. But the point is, if they pick the proper talent to put veterans with to try to bring them up, it might work. But the Danny Garcias and the Wheeler Uselesses and the Nick Plains of the world are not them. And then it just gets in the way. And then they shortchange the people there. And then the next match, they think, well, this will make up for it. Where again, you have to sit through Ricochet and Maddie and Nikki, the Buckaroos, going 20 minutes or whatever the fuck it is with poor Mark Briscoe, Hong Kong Phooey, and Swerve Strickland. Swerve, one of their main event guys, is teaming up with poor Mark Briscoe, who just won a match last week after 3 years. And Ricky Steamboat's little daughter. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. It looks visually ridiculous. And then when the Buckaroos come in, the people are said they don't give a shit because they don't want to see those two little ass wipes. So
they can't get any reaction unless they overwhelm people with spots. So that by the time you're done reacting to the first thing, the next thing has happened. And that keeps happening. And then you're exhausted. And then you clap.
And then it makes no difference when more people do it. That's because right. You've already seen it.
And then one person after another runs into the center of the ring and does their spot. And then the other person lays down on. I mean, we've seen everything they do.
Yeah.
The crowd doesn't give a shit about them.
No, if you want a review of the match, listen to one that we did from 5 years ago because it's the same thing, but now with more Phooey. And again, what is the audience for Douche Bailey? Is it effeminate midget fans of Kung Fu movies? Who is the target audience for that grinning nitwit?
I want to see him go in there with the Hurt Syndicate.
Oh.
Everyone's like, he's a black belt. Okay, put him in there with Lashley.
He'll be a black and blue belt. And then finally they ended it. One of the Buckaroos pinned Swerve with a small package. They beat Swerve.
It was Matt Buckaroo, I believe.
Well, there you go. And in the back, before we go any further with the ring action, they had MJF and Ospreay do a face-to-face that went way too long with just the two of them, where the announcer just fucking powders out as soon as there's any goddamn interplay between the talent. And MJF's story is he wants Ospreay to win the Owen and go to All In and win the title so then he can fight Ospreay and it'll be easy to win his belt back. And Ospreay's mumbling back at MJF and MJF's insulting Ospreay. And nobody's on the level of the devil. And Ospreay says, I am. Because, he's a goddamn, he looks like Ospreay could double for the head of a Hell's Angels chapter. The fuck. And Renee Moxley Good had a sit down with Jamie Hayter. It might have been Velma from Scooby-Doo. I'm not sure which.
That's 70s girl.
Yeah, I wonder if Mike Awesome's busy.
She looked like Like a single mom in 1975 going to a hearing on custody. Like what?
She had an audition for the Austin Powers sequel.
what is happening with Jamie Hayter?
She was cutting a promo on Mercedes Moon, and Mercedes jumped in the room and attacked her, and Jamie chased her out of the room, and they fought into the arena, where they had a horrible fight where they couldn't even time a 1-2. And in the entranceway, they did a duck the clothesline spot where Mercedes ducked the clothesline and ran off. And Jamie Hayter, when Mercedes ducked her clothesline and ran off, Jamie Hayter never turned around to see where Mercedes ran or to see if she had just stopped, for that matter. She just looked at the camera and was mugging like, see, she runs off every time. Because that was the way they called it in the locker room, so she didn't have to look. She knew. And then while she's saying that, well, she just runs off every time Mercedes ran back out and fucking knocked the shit out of her from behind and put her in the STF. So you got another baby face that's such a fucking idiot that they can't goddamn look behind them to see if the person that they're fighting is still there. And now think about this. Jamie Hayter got outsmarted by, as we've recently found out, a woman who regularly gets stranded of her own volition in the fucking woods.
Oh, that was in Monet Mag, from what I understand.
Yes.
We may need to revisit that on the drive-through, Monet Mag.
I'm sure I'm sure stories of her getting lost in major cities and small town locales and countryside.
How many of the stories will be an assistant? Her and an assistant.
Well, one of the team. Member of the team. So anyway, moving on. I'm just going to there's only two more things here.
This may be the briefest or the quickest we've ever
Well, because it's gotten ridiculous, and I'm going to make a point here shortly. Stay tuned for it on what we need to do to see if there's any hope for this company. But nevertheless, they had a big match. Remember, they brought Kevin Knight in just a couple weeks ago, and as we mentioned, he got a look to him, and he seems athletic, and he's taller than, the sign to ride the ride at Six Flags.
He looks like he would fit in NXT. He's been really good.
And so they've been beating the shit out of him. Just beating him every time you see him.
Never seen him win.
And now they put him in a single match. And by the way, Randy Orton did an interview talking about picking Joe Hendry for his WrestleMania opponent. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is pretty close to it, they had a number of options, but they didn't want to debut Rusev or another guy that he mentioned in a match with him because he had to win since he was going on to face Cena. And you wouldn't, under any circumstances, want to bring a guy in that you have plans for and beat him his first time on television. Randy just said the most plain, basic, simple fact of a goddamn wrestling business, and it's a revelation to these numbnutses over here. So Kevin Knight wrestled O'Sleepy. And I guarantee you that somebody told poor Kevin Knight, and he probably believes that, because it'll be a great match against this legendary Japanese wrestler, you'll look better because of it. But the way they gave him an out was remember Rush, Brian?
Rush.
Yes, rev it up and get it started. He's back. And he's got a problem with Kevin Knight because of some other goddamn thing that they did or are doing. So O'Sleepy goes to the ring, and then Kevin Knight is introduced, and as he's coming down not even a ramp, just the entranceway out from the fucking screen, Rush attacked him and beat the shit out of him. Bounced him off the railing and the ring steps and blah, 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 and out came Spitball to save him. And Rush just fucking blew this little prick off, as he should, but as he does all the other baby faces, just scoffed at the idea he should run. And after that, Rush has beaten the shit out of Kevin Knight. Then Kevin Knight rolled into the ring and Aubrey Ed rang the bell to start the match. Okay, so I guess they're going to give him the out of now that he's been beaten up by Rush, then Sleepy's going to beat him in a minute or two, and well, golly. No. They started off having a goddamn match. Now, Sleepy was in charge. He was slowly doing as few things as possible while the fans nodded off, but they went through a break. And when they came back, Kevin Knight was making a comeback. I wrote in, what the fuck was Rush for? Have these idiots ever even watched wrestling? This match went 10 minutes after that the guy had come out and kicked the shit out of Kevin Knight. So any residual damage that he had from that attack has been nullified and negated by him now making a comeback on and being competitive with goddamn Sleepy, who then beat him with that shitty clothesline. But not before we saw that Kevin Knight was fine doing all of his shit. The angle before the match meant jack shit, and now he just did a goddamn flat job in the middle of the ring. What is the matter with these people?
These people being what? Tony Khan?
Any of these people.
Tony Khan.
These cumulative people. Tony Khan, the wrestlers that are going along with this, some of them that are pitching ideas for this, because Tony can't write all this shit by himself. He just wouldn't have time. He's getting input. And he's getting the input right up the old poop chute. And then Samoa Joe and Claudio was in the main event. Again, I mean, it seems like we've seen this a lot, even if we haven't, because it's the goddamn Boar Horseman and poor Samoa Joe again, who's going to get his chance at the world title next week on free TV in a cage match, which means, I believe it's cage, I think. But that means he ain't going to win it. And they got a stadium show coming up. Nobody's ready to take the thing off of Moxley because nobody understands what the fuck his issue is. And they went past 10 o'clock and Joe choked Claudio and he tapped out. And then when the Boar Horseman and Dick the Boozer came out, Hobbs came in with a chair and they just beat Claudio up with the chair while the rest of them just watched. And that was the end of that.
Well, go ahead, please.
I'm just saying it's more of the same shit that got them in this position to begin with, and now they just can't stop doing it. That's it.
There's no brain trust. There's no one there who can execute and think right about these things and write the TV. So, when there isn't a backbone at the end, because Tony Khan thinks he knows everything about wrestling, he doesn't understand, as you pointed out many, many times, what to do, when to do it, how to do it, why to do it.
With who to do it.
But he's seen it, so he does it. And then no one gets any further than they've been, and everyone feels like they're just floating in water. Another AEW Dynamite. I'm getting sick of this show, I have to say.
Well, and that's the thing is that there are no money matches. And there are, because he picks, even if he wants to redo stuff that he's seen done in the past, he picks the wrong people to do it. In hindsight, what if, a completely different actor played Rocky or whatever? Some things just work with a particular person. He can't pick talent, and he can't pick the talent to listen to because he's indie minded. So he naturally gravitates to the kids that want to play wrestling instead of the guys that want to be major stars. And so there's no money matches. You can't say for the World Tag Team title, I'd love to see this fucking goddamn angle come to a big conclusion, because there ain't none. Say the world title, we haven't even seen the belt because of this lunatic fucking Moxley's goddamn fantasies that he's got about this underground tough guy club that he's president of. And the roster, there's some talent there, not as much as there used to be, but it's hidden by all the indie shit to where that it's just diluted, it's watered down. Should we go up and down? We did this a few years ago when there actually was still some element of hope. It was before the WWE took off, Vince took off, and the WWE pulled ahead. Should we go up and down the roster and see if there's 30 guys that we could keep in AEW that would make the backbone of a promotion if they were used right?
It's been a long time. It's been probably 4 years or so since we've done that. If we're going to do it for one, we have to do it for the other, I think.
Well, I think we ought to do it for these people first because they may need help.
You know, it's interesting. As you're saying this, I'm just thinking about like tag team division. You got a star tag team with Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin with MVP. They've got no division to work with. Women's division. I think Megan Bayne has shot out of a cannon as a star. She hasn't done very much, but just aura, presence, and size alone. She looks like a star. In AEW, that's a big deal. When someone actually looks like a star, you got to run with that.
Yes.
The division.
But now here's one thing. Does she have the personality or the experience on the microphone and the ability to fucking take it and run with it? Or is she one of these top attractions that needs a smaller, less cosmetically marketable, but more savvy veteran? Like, should a Bailey be alongside her? I'm not, whatever.
What she needs is someone to be in charge of a division that's actually going to be run well.
Well, that would be another thing also.
Kevin Knight, they signed him, and I said it right away. He's really athletic. He got a great jump. Looks good. Fans are into him. Seems that he could do what everyone else is doing. And he looks a little bit more like a star, so they've beaten him every single week. And that's
and they spent a lot less money on him than they spent on Mercedes and on Osprey and on O'Sleepy.
They paid Mercedes Moné so much money, she has a team. She has an assistant assisting her with what? For how much a year? I mean, that's just stupid money for someone who doesn't generate it.
I think honestly, I think some of these positions are and the importance of said positions are being exaggerated somewhat for the effect that she wants to give, which is that she's still trying to make people believe she's a star. She believes it. So my team could be this girl that I went to high school with that hangs out with me because she gets to travel with me.
Yeah, hi, it's very nice to meet you. I'm the publisher of Monet Mag. Perhaps you've heard of it. We're on newsstands nowhere.
My name is Ethel Guccione.
Well, I think it's a good idea to review the roster because there's probably names we're not thinking of. I'm okay with Darby. I'm not saying everyone has to be a big guy, but when every single person is just small and doesn't feel like a star, and the people that are wrestler size disappear for years at a time, seemingly, something needs to be evaluated. And again, we'll do WWE if we're going to do AEW down the road.
Well, speaking of evaluating things, what are they evaluating over at the Arcadian Vanguard Network this week?
Oh, another big week of shows. I wasn't prepared. Another big week of shows on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. Of course, every day the wrestling news is there for you. Get all the news without opinion, without conjecture, without paywall. None of that shit.
None of it.
Just get the straight ahead wrestling news. If you wake up in the morning and you say, what did I not watch last night? Find out from the wrestling news, directly from thewrestlingnews.com, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Of course, want to make mention of Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam, a look at May 1985 in the WWF 40 years ago. Hear about that crazy time. Post-WrestleMania, McAdamPod.com, or look for Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam, wherever you find your favorite podcast. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership! Yeah, sound didn't cut out there, unfortunately. Go through the archive, 605pod.com. There will be post-court shows once we have a little more time.
I am finding sound effects that your noise filter. I think you got this new noise filter just so I couldn't shout you down with my longer effects. All right, speaking of shouting down before
You figured me out.
Yeah. See, no denial there. Before we fucking figure the rest of this out and get out of here, did anybody watch this television program that we just discussed this past week?
That is a very interesting question. Before I answer that, Jim, let me just tell you, according to WrestleTix, AEW Dynamite, Wednesday, May 7th, 2025, the Masonic Temple Theater, Detroit, Michigan. Tickets distributed 2,954.
Ooh. Well, I mean, it was respectable in the theater, but it is off-putting now. We said they should run smaller buildings, but I guess there are no smaller arenas in most places. In a theater setting, it's disconcerting to see that big video screen just right behind the ring on the left-hand side and no seats, no distance, no ramp, no nothing. It's there. They come out of the wall.
I thought about that during the women's match. I think when Anna Jay hit the ring and, turned the pose to the camera, I'm thinking, the fans just watched her walk out there. She acknowledged them, and then she turns away from them to pose for the camera where there are no fans. It's bizarre. It's bizarre when you're not just in a big empty arena, when it's literally a theater where there's just cameras on one side. With that being said, I thought it looked cool. I actually liked the look, especially the backstage stuff. When all of a sudden you're doing your promos in like a classy
the wood
stairwell.
paneling.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wood paneling looked nice. And no, the theater, it looked like the Hammerstein Ballroom look with the box seats and so that looks nice. It's an old-fashioned theater. It's disconcerting a little bit to see that giant video wall right next to the ring.
Just for the record, the last time they were in Detroit, according to WrestleTix here, the Little Caesars Arena for Dynamite, May 2023, 8,173.
Ooh, well,
but
they didn't make it this time.
Obviously, that just means more people at home. Let's get to the ratings here. Jim, AEW Dynamite on TBS, Wednesday, May 7th, 8 to 10:05 p.m. On average, watched by 629,000 viewers.
Is that not what it was last week? Why that number?
It is. Last week was 629. It's exactly what it was last week.
At this point, how is that? I guess coincidences happen.
It says here, confirmed by WrestleNomics, the total viewership and key demo rating are the same as last week. And then in caps, this is not an error. Because that would be anyone's first thought.
Well, we said that they are down to the people that pretty much going to watch this no matter what they do. And then maybe that's it right now.
Well, let's get to these ratings. And again, these were compiled by WrestleNomics, AEW Dynamite on TBS, May 7th, 2025. Quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. The Adam Page, Will Ospreay, and Don Callis live promo confrontation, 714,000 viewers.
Okay, I'm going to say that is a little bit below possibly where they started last week, just off the top of my head.
It's in the range. I don't know exactly what it was last week. But we go to quarter 2, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. The Stokely Hathaway FTR live promo, the Anna J. Harley Cameron backstage promo. I like both those women. That was ridiculous, that promo.
Oh, I didn't even mention it because all I was going to say was the fakest, silliest, stupidest bunch of shit I've ever seen.
And the start of Toni Storm versus Thunder Rosa versus Penelope Ford versus Anna Jay with picture-in-picture, 719,000 viewers.
Good Lord. So apparently the amalgamation of Tits Incorporated got the sexually frustrated AEW audience to 5,000 more of them to join the jump on the party on the bandwagon. That's unusual. When's the last time they picked up in their second quarter?
I don't know. Last week, I think they were pretty respectable in the second quarter, but I don't remember if it was up.
I don't think it was.
Well, quarter
but maybe
three,
something else was up. That's why.
Quarter three, be professional. Quarter three, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m.
Wait, you want me to charge for it? That's illegal.
The continuation of the four-way match, the post-match, an ad break, and the Hurt Syndicate's confrontation with Top Flight and MJF's live angle. 677,000 viewers.
Again, very respectable. Only 42,000 down, the Hurts and MJF in that segment. So what I'm seeing now is the last part of this show is going to suck donkey balls, but go ahead.
We go now to quarter four, 8:45 to 9 p.m. The Elite and Ricochet backstage.
That's what's going to start it.
An ad break. Nick Wayne versus Rhino. The post-match with the Patriarchy. Rush's backstage promo in a very nice staircase, and he was wearing a sweater. The whole thing was very classy. 662,000 viewers.
Okay, so the second hour of the program is going to fall in a fucking hole that reaches all the way to the core of the earth. They are still not down. This is the most consistent first hour in the history of the show. And they're still not down to what their average was. So what the fuck happens?
We go now to the big 9 o'clock hour, Jim. Quarter 5, 9 to 9:15 p.m. The start of Mark Briscoe, Speedball Mike Bailey, and Swerve Strickland versus Ricochet and the Young Bucks with picture-in-picture 631,000 viewers.
Okay, it begins. They lost 31,000 at the top of the hour with their EVPs and some of their alleged major stars, but it's only 30,000. It's this show. Nothing to worry about yet.
Right, you forgot about Buck Syndrome. Let's go now to quarter 6, 9:15 and 9:30 p.m. The continuation of the six-man tag team match. MJF and Will Ospreay backstage. An ad break. Jamie Hayter's 1976 backstage interview. Mercedes Moné and Hayter's ramp angle. Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander's backstage angle. 550,000 viewers.
Ouch. Okay.
There's the
The
cliff.
Buck effect is 81,000 people and 112,000 in the 30 minutes since they had appeared on the screen for the first time. Yeah, they're starting to leave in droves.
Well, we go now to quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. La Facción Ignobarale, or whatever that is, and Kevin Knight's live angle. Live angle? What angle was that? Was it more than Roosh? Was there another person?
Remember when they talk to each other, that's an angle.
Oh, I must have missed whoever.
I think they're talking about the Rush thing there. There was another Yahoo wandering around.
Oh, see, I missed that. Yeah. And then Okada versus Kevin Knight with picture-in-picture.
Oh, my God. The champion of putting people to sleep.
The post-match with Speedball Mike Bailey.
Oh, my God. The champion of running people off.
And a Don Callis backstage promo.
Oh, my God. The champion of please don't do this anymore.
555,000 viewers.
They got 5,000 back. What a combination. People had to think, what the fuck? This will never happen again. All this rotten television all at the same time.
We go now.
I'm not holding out a lot of hope for quarter 8, by the way.
We're going now to quarter 8. We have a 5-minute overrun. 9:45 to 10 p.m., quarter 8. An ad break. The Hurt Syndicate's backstage promo. And the start of Claudio versus Samoa Joe with picture-in-picture. 540,000 viewers. 5-minute overrun. Continuation of the match and the post-match with Powerhouse Hobbs and Moxley. 583.
Okay, now again, the 43,000 for the 5 minutes, they're getting credit for Modern Family's time there. That doesn't make any sense that people would tune in. So just to see the climax of this thing. So actually, it wasn't bad as I thought. I thought to make the average, they'd have to get down to around the 500 mark, but they only lost 174,000 from the start of the program to the finish of regulation. I guess that ain't bad. It's the same people now. It's the same people, and even they get tired when you get to where there's 30 or 45 minutes left in this show and they know they've seen everybody that they give a shit about. You know, it's time to beat the traffic in their living room.
Yeah, I'll admit it. I went to bed early. I missed the main event.
Well, but so did there's thousands of people, depending on where you want to start from. But we're going to do that next week. We will look through the roster. Do they still advertise the people that work for this company?
They have something on their official website.
Has anybody taken out a complaint? Don't tell people I work for you.
They have something on their website, and we'll see if there's any other official source that can list the entirety of the roster.
Well, in that case, then we will go through the entirety of that. But are you entirely done with the entirety of the numbers here?
I am so hungry right now. I'm ready to go and eat something.
Well, in that case, I'll tell you what, I could gnaw somebody's leg off right now myself. So we're going to go and find something to eat, folks. And until then, we see you on the drive-thru and next week on The Experience. Thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody.